kids. Here comes that fucking cartoon we were talking about. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start fucking going crazy, man. Welcome to FatMan Beyond. I'm Kevin Smith.
I am Marc Bernardin.
Hey!
Oh.
All right, kids, we are trying for you at home on the internet. We're trying a very first here. We're doing FatMan Beyond with Marc at his house, and normally I'm at my house, and you know, JC Banff man just streams. Is he doing that behind my back? Is that going to happen the whole fucking night? Yeah, now that I see it, fuck yeah, take it off. We're streaming the show together. The only difference is instead of me being home, I'm at SModcastle. Last night was the grand opening of our little podcast theater in Leonardo, New Jersey, in the same building as Quick Stop, the convenience store that started all the cradle of civilization, as we call it around here and stuff. So I'm here at SModcastle with a full house. Is there a way to show off the audience, Josh, or no? That was the longest. All right, so that's terrible. Fuck that camera. Lose that. Nobody wants to look at my ass. From your camera, just turn it rack out and show the backs of the heads and shit like that. And that's how I make movies. I'm like, do this and something will happen. Let's turn on the house lights real quick just so people can see these people are real. Yeah. Castle Keeper Ernie O'Donnell is racing to the back to turn on the house lights so you can see that these people are real. Look at all those people. Look at them. Look at them. They're all shot with the video quality of a Morton Downey Jr. episode, ladies and gentlemen. So this is us getting to do FatMan Beyond with like an audience. Normally we do it at Scum and Villainy Cantina with live people, and me and Marc are in the same room. But tonight I'm here. We got an audience. Marc has this audience here, plus the audience of the internet, but has no audience in the room that he's at. Where are your fucking 50 people, Marc? I told you to bring 50 people with you.
They could not pay the toll, so I left them behind.
What have you been up to, my good friend? I haven't seen you in days since I left Los Angeles. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. The last time I saw you was at a party to celebrate the upcoming premiere of one Masters of the Universe Revelations.
That's absolutely right.
Yes.
Christian, jack up Marc much higher, would you?
Yeah, can you not hear me? Am I not booming through like the All-Father I hoped I would be?
You're sounding like Odin himself. Now that sounds much better. What else is going on, my friend?
It's been a busy work week. I had a pitch meeting on Friday. What is today? Saturday? So that would be yesterday.
Right.
For a fancy movie project at a fancy movie studio. I don't know how it went, other than I got a lot of attaboys in the room. It's like, great pitch. That was really good. Nice work, pal. That could all mean diddly dip shit, but I will take it as the warm bath that I needed it to be. So the week was prepping for that.
So and knowing what that was, which I obviously won't share and stuff, some heavy duty prep went into it, I would assume.
There was some deep prep, you know, and also because I'm a procrastinator, it was a lot of deep prep that I did in like 4 days that I probably could have done in like 3 months, but that's not how my brain works.
You've been practicing a lifetime for this, though, so I think you were ready for the moment, to say the least.
I was ready to go.
Marc is already talking about coming out and joining us here in the real world at SModcastle, probably the second half of August. Is that right?
Yeah, like a second or third or fourth weekend of August, I think.
So we'll be able to do this with Marc sitting right next to me when that happens. But until then, your week, you've been getting ready for the pitch thing. My week was getting ready for the SModcastle grand opening, which happened last night. We did Vegan Abattoir, the show that I do with Harley. We did Jay and Silent Bob Get Old. And both of those shows were sold out. As you can see from the video, it's a small theater, black box, 50 seats and stuff like that. But let's be honest, the people here absolutely overpaid to see the fucking show. So I was so delighted anybody fucking came. So we had 2 sold out shows. And then the third show was me showing this Smodcast cartoon movie that Steve Stark made years ago that we've never put out. But like, you know, and I financed it and shit. But like, I didn't care because I love the movie so much. I watch it. I smoke weed and watch it all the time. So I've been watching this movie by myself in my office for like 6 years. And last night was the first time I got to watch it with an audience. And it was the, you know, late show and it didn't sell out. So for most of the week, it looked like only 6 fucking people were going to be here. Like when we had the thing, at which point I was going to be like, let's just go out to eat, you know, like fucking, it's the beauty of the thing when you own the theater. You're like, let's cancel the show and go to my house and smoke weed instead. You're like, all 6 people have been like, fuck yes. So when I got there, we wound up being like 2/3 full and shit. It was like 30 people, 35 people or something. So it was really nice. And I got to watch it with a fucking audience, man, and hear people laughing at shit that I have been laughing at for like fucking years by myself with confirmation though. I'm like, oh, fuck, I wasn't crazy, man. Like that was fun. But it was an absolute fucking delight. We had a SModcastle in California years and years ago on Santa Monica Boulevard. Matty Cohen and I opened it 10 years ago. It just came to a close, 10-year anniversary and stuff. And I never thought we'd get to do it again. Here we are getting to do it again, man. So we're in New Jersey. You can find us. Obviously, don't come tonight. We're sold out. Fuck off. But it's like that fucking Bible story. There's no room at the inn. Not tonight. If Mary and Joseph would come the next night, they get a room. But that night, no fucking room and shit. Same thing here. Come down to SModcastle, ladies and gentlemen. See a show. We got some shows tomorrow and whatnot. I want to thank the folks that made this possible. Ernie O'Donnell built this fucking place. And for the people in the room, does it look great or what? Ernie and Rajiv are my partners and stuff. And then we got good folks who gave us lots of free shit who I want to quickly shout out. TV's behind me upon which you're watching Marc Bernardin looming over me like Big Brother and shit. Those come from the good folks at TCL, who run the TCL theaters, who put my footprints in cement, man. So they gave us some free TVs. We thank them for that. Very, very nice. The folks at Zoom who do our mixing board. That's the only reason you can hear me and while the people out there can hear us and stuff. And the good folks at Shure microphones, I'm holding right in my fucking face. If you want something dick-like in your face that's powerful, Shure microphones. We thank them for their generous gifts to SModcastle. For the folks at home who are like, where is this? We're in New Jersey at the Quick Stop building where I made Clerks like nearly 30 years ago. So Quick Stop is at the other end of this building. This is the end of the building we rarely ever showed in the movie. If never, I don't think we've ever shown it in the movies once and stuff. So when we were about to go on the Jay and Silent Bob reboot roadshow tour, we came to Jersey and I kind of fell in love with the idea with Ernie and Rajiv about like, let's open a fucking theater. Let's open SModcastle again, right here in the fucking Quick Stop. Powerful ley lines must lay under the earth of Quick Stop because something fucked up happened here years ago and I have a career. So like, let's make sure that career keeps going. Let's lay those lines again. So we decided to open up fucking SModcastle and it's got bugs. So last night being the opening night was wonderful. Tonight being night 2 is absolutely historic, especially with us being able to do this. So if you're at home and you're watching and shit, come on down to SModcastle if you get a chance. But we got a show to do, so we should dive into it. The big question we were having before the show began, and the people here in the audience heard us having this like backstage conversation, is we have sponsors tonight. But I feel like I've done a lot of advertising already. So like, I mean, they're not sitting there going, boy, I hope they're fucking going to do their ad tonight. Are they? Do you think we get away with not doing it?
Are you asking me?
Bam.
Yeah. Oh, FatMan is here, ladies and gentlemen. JC.
I don't think Will Wilkins will be very happy about it if we skip it.
Really? He'd be like, let's see, I'm going to leave my phone open. If Will texts.
If Will texts, we'll just stop the show and do some ads.
Yeah, like if Will texts, then I'll know it's fucking serious, man. Because sometimes I don't even think Will's watching the fucking show. So if he texts, we'll know it's important. And then we'll have to bust some fucking ads. But what I would like to get to is the goddamn content, because I'm very eager to talk about the movie that I watched. Did you watch the movie that I watched?
Luca? Luca's adorable.
Not that fish fucker. No, man. I'm another movie. You watch
Flipper Tambien. It's two dudes who are in love, and there's a girl who gets in the way, and it's adorable.
I'm talking about fucking Black Widow. Did you watch Black Widow?
Oh, that one. Yes, I watched that one too.
Ladies and gentlemen, Will Wilkins says, please don't skip the ads.
Well, we could do the ad. Here's what we could do. Native after we talk about Black Widow and Loki before the news. And then we do keeps before Q&A. How does that work?
Sounds like a plan. It helps to have adults in the room. And apparently between you and Will, somebody's got to pay for this shit. Here we are doing fucking live ads, ladies and gentlemen. And boy, I couldn't be happier for the live ad we're about to do. You see how I turned that shit on?
Yeah, well played.
This week, ladies and gentlemen, we got two sponsors, as you probably heard. But the first half of the show, this top half of the show, is going to be brought to you by the good folks. I literally forgot who it is already. Don't fucking tell me. The good folks at fucking Native. Go to nativedeo.com, ladies and gentlemen. Follow along as Mark tells us all about Native. Go, Mark.
Yeah. Do you hate things that stink? Of course you do. Native cares about the products you put in your body. They're about stopping the stink the right way. That's the Native difference. You probably know all about their legendary aluminum-free deodorant, but they got body wash and toothpaste, and they got their own mineral-based sunscreen. Yes! Native now has broad-spectrum SPF 30 sunscreen for your face and body. No, I'm going big. Just let me be.
Cut. Might need another take on that fucking yes.
I'm filling the space. Let me fill the space.
You did fill the fucking space. Here, let me help. Let me help you sell Native, man.
All right, get in there.
Shit, true fucking story. Never mind that ad copy that Mark is brilliantly performing for us, man. I had a Native fucking crossover in real life this week. I just came out to Jersey. We're here for the summer and stuff. So me and Jennifer, my wife, went to Target to buy a bunch of fucking supplies and stuff. And she literally pulled me out of an aisle into a side aisle to be like, they have my products. And her products were fucking Native, man. And so I was like, I get that shit for free. And she's like, I'm going to pay for it. And she bought all the same Native shit that we have for free at home, which we could have sent out. She was like, how are we going to get it to us? I was like, FedEx. And she's like, you've lost perspective. And she bought Native right at fucking Target, like anybody fucking can. But here on the show, we actually send them to the website. Is that correct?
We do. And also, why did you let me read that shit if you had your own great story ready to go? Like, what the fuck?
Just want to make sure the connection's working. Figured, yes. So Native DEO, kids. Now go to nativedeo.com. Mark's going to tell you about what a fucking brilliant deal they're going to offer you. Tell them, Mark.
Indeed. If you stay fresh and stay clean with Native, go to nativedeo.com/FatMan or use the code FatMan at checkout and get 20% off your first order.
I'm sorry. I got to fucking check because this could be a bad line from across the country. Did you say 20% off?
20% off.
Let me tell you something. That's better than a blowjob.
No, but it's 20% off.
Most fucking honest and quickest response I've ever in my life. As if somebody suggested it before and shit. He's like, for the last time, that's not true. We thank the good folks at Native Deodorant for sponsoring FatMan on Batman. Go to nativedeo.com/FatMan right now or enter the promo code FatMan. Is it just FatMan or FatMan?
It's just FatMan at checkout for 20% off your first order.
20% off to stink less, man. We thank the good folks at nativedeodorant.com. They're making this all possible. Give it up for Native Deodorant, kids. Will Wilkins said thank you. Apparently he does watch the show, man.
He does.
He's like doing 9 other things and just checks in and stuff, but he's legit watching.
I like that you got to play Santa Claus for Will just then. It's like, oh, Will is a happy boy.
It takes so little to make people happy. He's like, please help me get paid.
Yeah.
And now he's happy.
Yeah.
All right, Mark, are you ready to talk about it?
Let's talk about it. Let's do it.
After a year or more of waiting, Marvel finally put Black Widow out there. Some people, of course, went to see it in the theater. I watched it on Disney Plus. What did you do, Mark?
I similarly Disney Plused it. I could not make it to the theater on Friday because of said pitch meeting. So instead, this morning at 11 o'clock, I heated up the old Disney Plus and paid my money and watched My Widow.
And for those in the audience, how many people have not, with the show of putting your hands together, how many people have not seen Black Widow yet? For those who have seen Black Widow, put your hands together real quick.
Those I can't hear the applause, so I don't know what that read was.
Right there, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, how does one do this? Normally, I don't think about this because I'm at home and I don't hear people going, oh, man, shut up. But like, we may be spoiling it for some folks in this room. Now, of the percentage of people that didn't see it yet, how many of those people are like, oh, I'm not seeing it is not a priority to me? Put your hands together real quick. What the fuck? What are you sleeping on this shit for, man?
I mean, to be fair, it came out yesterday.
A few people have been like, we've been with you all weekend. I've been with you and I still watch the fucking movie. So
yeah, I'm not going to spoil anything.
The excuses here in the room is hotel internet sucks. I had some pretty decent internet, so I watch it. Sorry, kids, we're gonna have to spoil this to talk about it. So I
won't. I'm not gonna spoil anything. I'm gonna do spoiler free because it's been out for 24 hours, dude.
Guy's got a point. We're talking about this movie like nobody's gonna know what happens. It's fucking Titanic with people, right? Like we know she's gonna hit the iceberg by the third fucking act because she ain't in the universe no more. It's a good point. Yeah, I guess we could kind of try to talk about it without spoilers, but I want to get into the nitty gritty. But I'll follow your lead if you think that works.
Yeah, I feel like we can definitely dodge around some of the stuff. I think we could do it. I feel good about us.
Kids, we got weird shit on our monitor up here. Christian, well, you might want to give us a fucking heads up. We know. What a great excuse. All right. It's gone.
The house is on fire. Oh, we know.
Yeah. We're well aware. Tell your funny jokes. All right, my friend. Let's walk into it. Your thoughts.
I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I expected to because Natasha Romanoff.
My fucking review. I went into this one where I'm like, I'll see it because I'm a completionist. But the first 10 minutes, I was like, this fucking company's going places. Like, they really know how to open a movie. I don't know why I ever have this thought anymore where I'm like, I don't know if that's going to be the one for me. Like, I talked about on one of the other shows. I'm like, oh, I'm totally going to see, fucking the Eternals. But like, I have no emotional connection to the material. I never read the book growing up, even as an adult. So, this one I'm not as jazzed for and stuff. At least Black Widow, I had some sort of skin in the game. But after like seeing Endgame, it's kind of weird knowing that like, well, unless they're going to bring her back to life, if this is a story set in the past, I know she's probably going to make it out alive just to die fucking later on and stuff. So I didn't have high expectations because I was like, I think I know what to expect, even if I don't know what the story is. I forgot that these cats are like master fucking chefs, right? So like, even though I figured I had all the recipes and I knew I wasn't making the exact one in my head that they made, I was like, yeah, I know where this is going. I didn't know where it was going. They fucking gripped me in the first like fucking few minutes. And like you said, it was not the movie I was expecting. And because of that, I loved it. For the first 90 minutes, I absolutely loved the movie. And that's not to put down the last whatever the fuck, but it was just, I watched the first 90 minutes in a row. And then I had to come do stuff here and whatnot. And then when I went back like at night, it wasn't like, oh, this part doesn't fucking, I guess we'll talk about it in a minute. But it was just like the momentum had kind of fallen off for me, not by virtue of the movie, because of something else. But I too was surprised by how much I like it. That's not to say that like I'm shocked that Scarlett Johansson could carry a movie. I've loved her in many things. But like the idea that there'd be a Black Widow movie that followed Endgame, where we all know that she gave up her life and shit like that. And never mind her part in Endgame. Endgame being a Marvel universe, it's just tough for any movie to fucking come out after it and be like, okay, this is the next Marvel movie. And God damn it, without COVID, this movie would have stuck the landing. It still sticks the landing now, but like it would have worked less than a year after Endgame. Do you agree? I keep looking at the monitor and I should look at
I totally do. You know, I like you, the first like 10 minutes when you were, you know, this isn't that much of a spoiler, but it's the sort of the origin of this family unit that we sort of come to meet and get invested in. You know, Natasha, her sister Yelena, and her parents Alexei, and what's her mom's name? I can't remember.
Melina.
Melina. You know, and
paid a lot of attention, man.
Yeah, well played.
Not even like a top tier character or something where I'm like, oh, it's her.
I was Rachel Weisz, who the amazing Rachel Weisz.
Yeah.
And so the movie it's like two things. It's both spycraft. It's a lot of Natasha, you know, Black Widow-y, like doing the swirly kick around people and bring them to the ground and international espionage. And then it's also this really lovely kind of family connection story about all these people who were kind of broken in service of a country and how they, you know, where their lives led them and how they find a way to get back together. And so for me, I you know, the spy stuff was fun. The action stuff is fun enough, but that middle chunk, like, and most of it is built around this dinner that they have in Melina's like pig farm, is wonderful, like in a way that I didn't expect it to be, like moving in a way I didn't expect it to be. Like I did not expect to be sitting there watching Hopper from Stranger Things sing American Pie and bring tears to my eyes because
it's emotional about it, where you're just like, oh my God, this is crazy touching.
Yeah. And like I haven't seen Pew and anything else. I never saw Midsummer. I never saw Little Women. So this is the first time that I've actually seen her, and she's phenomenal. You know, right. And so if the enterprise of Black Widow is to introduce Yelena, her character, into the MCU, then it was an enterprise worth doing, you know, because
based
not
on
to spoil that, she is going to be further in the MCU.
Yeah, especially you watch the end credits scene, they make it very fucking clear that that's not the last we see of her. And this, and not so, I guess we can do it without spoiling it. Watching this end credit scene, this was the very first end credit scene that didn't hand off to a movie as much as it expressly handed off to a Disney Plus show. Did you notice that?
Yeah. I mean, because granted, the other movies we'd seen, I mean, I don't know, they didn't have any Disney. I mean, I guess we had talked about there having been, you know, a WandaVision, or we maybe knew there was a Falcon Winter Soldier show after Endgame, but there was nothing there to hand off.
Now that's going to be part of it going forward at this point. Like they could either hand off to one of the features or hand off to like whatever the show is going to be next. And the handoff was nice. Again, I don't want to spoil it for people, but like the handoff made me interested in the character that they were handing off to for like the first time ever. Like I was like, oh shit, fucking I'll watch that. If it's all about that fucker trying to kill that fucker. Shit.
No, I care about him.
Let me ask you this, because this is where I had my third act stumble, and it's no fault of the movie whatsoever. It's based on assumption, you know, that I'd gotten from the net. And this spoils things too. God damn it. Fuck you people who didn't watch it. I'm trying to think how to do this without doing it. Spoil it. All right, kids, if you can earmuff it if you're in the room, if you're home and you haven't watched it. Gonna spoil a little bit of Black Widow, very specifically one of the bad guys. Cover your ears and stuff. And if you're here in the audience and you're covering your ears, don't look at me because you might accidentally lip read and shit like that. Here we go. Do you remember rumors of who Taskmaster was for like 2 years, like in production, or even a year ago when they started showing art and stuff? Did you ever hear? To me, I thought it was common knowledge that there was somebody who was going to be Taskmaster. Let's start there. Did you ever hear rumors about who was really Taskmaster?
I never did, but I also, kind of sidestepped as much of that kind of, onset rumor mill if I can, because rarely is it right. And even if it's right, does that make it a better watch for me later on down the road? Does that sap some of the juice of watching the finished product if I know too much about it going in? It's an occupational hazard that we all have, but I'm like, if I can avoid it, why not avoid it?
So, like, you don't think the article on the internet was accurate?
Sometimes it isn't.
So wait, is He-Man really in our show?
Nope.
Honestly, it's not just one article. It wasn't speculation from one website. I was under the assumption that everybody knew. And again, I'm going to try to keep this very oblique, but anybody in the room know what I'm talking about? Does anybody in the room know anything else about that story? Like, this is what it read like to me, based on having heard those old rumors. It felt like they had a year off and they were like, fuck it, let's just change the movie, and changed who one of the characters was. Did it read like that to anybody else? Didn't hurt the movie one iota as far as I was concerned. I wasn't like, oh, let's fucking ruin it. But it really, I was cocksure that there was one character who was going to be the villain that was not. And I was fucking completely thrown by that.
Well, who did you think it was? We can spoil that since it isn't.
That was like the most honest no I've heard in a long time. Like, no, don't spoil it and shit. Go to the bathroom so we can talk like adults. So the adults can talk about their children things. Yeah, I mean, you heard the passion there. I don't want to spoil it, but you didn't.
But if it's not a thing that happened, how is that a spoiler? Is it some weird alternate universe sliding door spoiler?
Then it becomes a spoiler for what it's not. You know what I'm saying? Because if we say the name, then people watching the movie instantly eliminate that person as a potential. They're telling me to stop blue balling them, Mark. What do I do? I've never faced that. It doesn't happen at my house. Shecky loves me. All right, here we go. Again, fucking, I'm sorry if you haven't watched. If you're at home and you're like, cover your ears and shit. I was cocksure that Rachel Weisz was Taskmaster. Was I alone in that?
I didn't hear that.
I'm not crazy. Like, I literally, as I watched the movie, I was like, we are in a different timeline. I felt like it was that Berenstein Bears thing where I'm like, no, everybody knows it's going to be Rachel Weisz. And when it wasn't, I was like, what the fuck? Like, and not in a bad way where I was like, this movie sucks, but I'm like, what has happened to my mind? Like, I literally thought I woke up in another dimension where they did a different ending in the movie. I thought I left our fucking timeline, Mark.
I suppose you could have originally planned to do that and have her be both Taskmaster and Natasha's mother. And so, but
mother,
quote unquote mother. I mean, I suppose you could have done that and that would have played. And yes, to make that not Natasha, not what is it, Milena?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple of, you got to rebuild that building and you got to redo this thing and you got to change the identity. Yeah, it's doable. But it feels like that family scene was so much always a part of the movie that, I guess.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it wouldn't have been out of character for them to still have that family scene and for, her to go rogue at the end and be revealed as the bad guy. And I'm, again, not disappointed they didn't do it, but I for some reason, I thought we all fucking knew that. Like, and it's not true. I mean, I'm sure if I called my mother, she'd be like, I'm thinking about not dying. Good night, Tiger, and shit like that. But like, I thought anybody that cares about this shit thought that. Like, it was a kind of a mind fuck for me. And again, did not ruin the movie one iota, but it actually took it out of exactly where I thought it was going, where I was like, oh, I know it's going to happen. And sooner or later, she's going to pull the mask off and it's fucking Rachel Weisz. And then it wasn't. And I was like, holy shit. Like, all right, fucking, I better pay more attention.
Yeah, no, I appreciated that because I think Marvel, especially Marvel TV, and we'll talk about it when we talk about Loki, has kind of fallen into this mystery villain trope a little bit, where it's always who's the bad guy. We'll find out later, and at some point, it will be Agatha all along. It'll be the power broker all along. It will be.
It's fucking Mephisto all the way.
Oh, Mephisto to the elbow with Mephisto. And so, like, there it is.
To piece that one together, and when they did, they were like, "That's dirty."
So I appreciated like there not being a giant mystery about who Taskmaster was, and having it be some like, oh, "It's her mom," quotes. Like I like that it was just Taskmaster, and it meant something to your bad guy, but it didn't need to mean anything, and it did mean something to your hero. A little bit more, I suppose. The guilt of it all still plays.
Agreed. That's why I was like not unsatisfied. I was like, oh, that's fucking kind of dope, man. And then suddenly I was like, again, like as somebody who tells stories for a living, you think you could see the fucking strings, and you're like, well, that's a setup, and it'll get paid off. Like they gave us the setup, and it was loud as fuck. But I was so busy looking like it was a, fucking 3-card Monty. I was so busy watching the card that I assumed was the fucking card. They gave me all the information to figure this shit out myself. And still I was like, couldn't be that. Move aside. So it was actually like well done. But Banff, man, jump in here real quick. I want to see if the internet has any fucking thoughts on the subject. Anybody agreeing with that?
Banff.
Banff, ladies and gentlemen.
most of the internet just muted the show if they didn't want to hear any of the spoilers. So that's mostly what I'm seeing.
That's fucking pretty awesome, man. They just muted the show. Thank God they didn't leave. They weren't like, fuck this.
They're asking me to let them know when we move on to Loki.
Oh, because they don't want to get spoiled. Well, is there anybody like going like he's out of his fucking mind? I never heard that. Or was there a lot of agreement?
There was a lot of agreement that journalists were speculating that that's who the bad guy was, but nobody said that they heard it as like inside info.
Interesting. God, the internet just works on me, man. Like fucking I'm like, it's fucking true. I read it. All right. I really fucking enjoyed it, man, despite the fact that like the third act or the tail end of the movie was not what I was building in my head. And again, not in a bad way where I'm like, oh, my ending would have been better. I was delighted that they actually fucking threw me. And I didn't think that was kind of possible. Not to take anything away from Marvel. They're amazing storytellers, but like, there's tropes that can be followed in comic book movies that have to be followed and shit. And so I thought I was reading all the tropes correctly, completely misread it. As such, I loved the first 90 minutes of it, was baffled, and then still enjoyed the last 30 minutes of it. What's your final summation, Mark?
I'm glad we got this movie. I'm glad that we were able to fill in some of these blanks for Natasha Romanoff, and I'm glad that it is going to have repercussions into the MCU going forward, which I was always kind of concerned about. Is this just this bottle episode that has no impact? And the MCU is all about impact. It's all about the gathering storms and all about rolling the stones. And so I was really impressed by it. And it was emotional in a way I didn't expect it to be, because sort of the death of Natasha Romanoff in Endgame, spoilers, was a pretty big moment. And so to be able to give her finally, even after that moment, sort of her moment in the sun, I really, really appreciated it. And again, like Florence Pugh, to get to follow her. And I think it's public knowledge that she's in the Hawkeye cast. So that
they announced that they were like, she's joining Hawkeye.
Yeah. So I think we do sort of understand a little bit about her trajectory going forward. And I love that there's that little callback, and it's in a scene that I'm not going to spoil, but it's a callback to the very first Avengers movie when Black Widow gets the best of Loki, and it's you think she's on her heels, you think that Loki's winning, and then it's thank you for your cooperation.
Yeah, they kind of show that like she's a very strategic fighter, but she doesn't just use her muscles; she can fight with her mind and shit. You're right. I hadn't read that. I hadn't realized that part. Man.
Yeah.
Right on. So Marvel does it again. Fuck. When will they leave, Mark? When will they drop the ball? Is it possible?
Anything is possible, but it does not seem likely at this point.
Which leads directly into Loki. You watched that as well?
I did. I took the journey into mystery.
Which a great title, reference to old Marvel title that characters appeared in and stuff. The last week's episode, not the week that just passed and stuff, but the week before, where we got the reveal of the timekeepers, seemed like a lot happened. This episode seemed like less happened than the previous episode, although there's a big reveal at the end. What were your thoughts, my friend?
I think this was my favorite episode of the show so far.
All right.
Yeah, I think that it's beginning to answer some questions, in that ultimately, what is Loki here for? What is Loki looking for? And the timekeepers is just a handy sort of MacGuffin that he's after, but emotionally, what does Loki want? And it's clear that Loki doesn't want to be alone, and he has been his entire time. He's betrayed everybody who might have stuck with him. And so he's finally turned that corner into realizing that I don't just want to survive, I need to live, and to see you give me Richard E. Grant in a Kermit the Frog costume and giant helmets. I will watch 60 minutes of that and just be pleased as punch. And so Richard E. Grant is classic Loki. You got Kid Loki and Black Loki and Alligator Loki and Little Throg, sort of buried between the layers, which was apparently voiced by Chris Hemsworth, which I thought was adorable.
What?
Yes.
Chris Hemsworth did the voice of Throg?
Yep.
There's one moment in Loki where they're traveling through the earth like Simpsons cartoon style, where you see dead things and things that have been hidden in the earth for a long time. And I watched it on the phone first in the morning, and so I didn't see that detail. It wasn't until later on the internet told me that Throg was in it. I was like, bullshit. And then I watched it again, blew it up. I was like, it's fucking Throg. I didn't know that he was the voice. Where'd you hear that?
I think THR or maybe IGN reported it out. But yeah, which I just found adorable. And like the deep cuts of the Marvel Comics continuity, like the Thanos helicopter.
Yes.
It's like, guys.
That is. In the comics, kids, when they were doing Infinity Gauntlet, I think, didn't he fucking travel around from time to time on a helicopter that said Thanos on the side of it?
It first appeared in 1979 in Spidey Super Stories number 39, where he's legit flying around in a Thanos helicopter.
So Loki's written his name on the side, but that was in the background of the, where are they? What are they calling that place?
Yeah, the Void is all they call it. And Alioth is also, a big comic book character, which does tie kind of into the Kang, the Conqueror of it all. So I like sort of where they're pushing, and the Sylvie Loki story, which feels like it's a little bit romantic, which also feels kind of skeevy because they're either brother and sister or the same thing. And so is it just masturbation, or are they falling in love? Or are they just friends? Or unclear. But at least we know what he wants, and he knows that Sylvie's the other side of it. I didn't love that death seems to mean nothing in this universe. Like you give Agent Mobius like this kind of like shocking send off, and then he's back the very next episode. You give Loki this very surprising, like, did they just kill fucking Loki? That's ballsy. And then he's back the very next episode. Like, you kind of want there to be some repercussions to actions, and the show doesn't seem to do that, unless what they're pointing to is that Agent Mobius is a Loki and has been the whole time. And Lokis survive.
You just fucking broke my brain. That's why you fucking have Marc Bernardin on your show, ladies and gentlemen, because he sees shit you don't see. I didn't fucking see that. That's fantastic, man. I also liked how you broke down the loneliness shit. I didn't see that, even though he literally talks about being lonely and shit. And Sif is like, you will always be alone. And I was just like, I wonder what that means. Well, it takes Mark to kind of break it down. Do you think it was Chronopolis that we saw at the end?
I would believe that. It seems as if we're pushing in that direction. Although I will be upset. Mark my words. I will be upset if Kang is the big sort of string puller at the end.
You won't like if it's Kang?
I won't, because Kang means nothing to any of the characters we've been following. Kang only works for us, the audience. Loki doesn't know who Kang is. You know, Mobius doesn't know who Kang is. Sylvie doesn't know who Kang is. So if Kang steps out and says, I've been doing this all along, like, well, who are you now? And what you want is
only like fanboys are like, oh my God, fucking Kang did it. I knew it. But the rest of the people who don't follow this shit would be like, who's that?
Yeah, that means nothing to me. So you want it to be somebody who means something to these characters. You want it to be somebody who it's fucking like procedural writing where the bad guy is always a person you met in the second act. Like, it's every Law and Order, every cop show, when they do their interviewing of people, you have to have seen the person along that interview trail in order for that to make sense. It's always like the third person.
You're right, man. Like I just went through all the Law and Orders in my head, and you always meet the bad person like in the middle of the episode.
Yeah, it just can't come out of nowhere.
For as much TV as I've watched, like TV writing is still fascinating. You're like, that's fucking ABC, bro, and I'm like, that's brilliant. You're right. That's true. The Loki variant, I've never fucking crossed my mind whatsoever.
And I also think that Ravonna Renslayer, Judge Ravonna, might also be a Loki.
They're all fucking Lokis?
The only reason I think she's a Loki, and I think she's the bad guy, which is where they're pointing, or it's the fucking Miss Minutes hologram computer thing.
The cartoon bad guy?
The cartoon bad guy, which would also be kind of badass.
Is Poochie her helper? So you think it's going to wind up being one of those? And if it wound up being Kang, you wouldn't be like, "Oh, that fucking rocks." You'd be like, "Dumb storytelling."
Or just it's not emotional to anybody. It's just data.
Me, I'm like, my childhood's back.
It's here.
Wow, man, perspective, the one that I didn't have. What do you think happens in this very last episode? You think it's just Ravonna revealed as the bad guy?
I think it's Ravonna, because that's where they're pushing, is Ravonna real as the bag, or at least Ravonna wanting the same thing that they want, and now also like the race for Chronopolis and who's behind all of this, and why Ravonna is willing to cover it up.
We only have an hour left, not on this show, but on their fucking show, for them to tie up all those details and then thread the needle for what's next.
Yeah. I completely believe that Kang is the post-credit sequence. That like you wrap up the story and then you nod, you then pass off to Ant-Man 3 with, oh shit, it's Kang. Kang's doing this. Why is Kang doing this? Who's Kang after? And then that leads you into Quantumania.
Man, you're fucking good at this, dude. Like in that Marvel room and shit, plotting things out. That absolutely fucking makes sense. All right. We got one more episode. It happens on Wednesday?
Next Wednesday.
And then what? After Loki's done, nothing until Hawkeye?
Nothing until What If, which we saw the first trailer of.
And the trailer, which of course we can't show lest we be thrown off of fucking YouTube.
Yeah, let's not get crazy.
Tried to show a clip of something. We tried to show a fucking clip of the He-Man trailer of Masters of the Universe show. And they were like, you don't have the authority to do this. I was like, I'm a fucking showrunner and shit. So we won't try to show the fucking trailer, but we will talk about that What If trailer. Does that tie up Loki and Black Widow?
It does for me.
Both on Disney Plus, kids. They're not a sponsor, but we love what they're doing. Go watch those fucking shows. This brings us into the news, doesn't it?
It does indeed.
Ladies and gentlemen, Marc Bernardin is not only one of the best fucking writers you'll hear tonight, he's also a fucking guy that used to cover the goddamn news, man. He's a news hound. And even though he's gone on to more creative pastures, news is still in his blood, man. He went and found some news for us to talk about. Give it up for Marc Bernardin with the news.
Hey, so Marvel put out the new What If trailer.
What's Wither the What do you got?
It's, I think What If, the trailer for What If, and the fact that we get our first look at the new Guardians of the Galaxy, which seems to be focused around T'Challa, which was voiced apparently in one of his last, if not his last role, Chadwick Boseman.
Wow.
Which, like that voice sounds familiar, or they got a really good double for his voice. And it's like, no, that's him. And
all of the characters, are they using the real actors? Like I saw Tony Stark. Is that?
I don't know if that's RDJ or if that's just, yeah, it didn't quite sound like RDJ. But I think that might be Chris Hemsworth because that did sound like Hemsworth. It definitely sounded like Michael B. Jordan, who's done like animation voices before, so it doesn't surprise me.
Right.
But the idea that we're getting, Iron Killmonger, is pretty great. The fact that you're getting Yondu and T'Challa roaming through the universe as Star-Lord is pretty great. Captain Carter looks pretty great.
Yeah.
Like we'd seen some of the Captain Carter stuff before, but I didn't quite comprehend the breadth of the stories that they were telling. And I'm super excited for it. Like, it looks great.
Never mind the stories. The stories are cool. The What If formula has been around forever. Marvel had the book for years and years. So it's a winning formula that most people have never really touched before in terms of anthology. And it works very, very insanely well in the Marvel universe because they created it. That being said, I was always going to be on board because like, ooh, there's stories about shit that could happen or didn't happen and whatnot. Nobody ever told me it would be one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. This cartoon is fucking stunning.
Yeah.
It looks like, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse times 10 across the boards. Everything about it looks like it was animated in like the fucking 40s or the 50s. And I mean that in the best possible way. Like, it looks Max Fleischer fucking good. Or what about you?
Yeah, no, there's that sequence where Captain Carter is like backlit by headlights of a truck, and it's just gorgeous because the light is spilling in weird ways, and the characters all feel like they have weight, and that's kind of what you want, especially if you're looking for likenesses and you're looking for something that feels like reality that you can still push into the unreal. I think it looks amazing. I think it sounds great. And yeah, the short like 23-minute nuggets of stories is a perfect way for us to just dip into these what if stories.
That fucking headlight shot is more cinematic and more visually like accomplished and gorgeous than anything I've ever put in an actual fucking movie, man. And it's a cartoon, but it's like, don't forget, this is a cartoon made by the people that practically fucking invented the art form, man. It's coming from the house of Disney. So I guess we all should have expected that it would be kind of stunning. Add to it that it's Marvel, and Marvel's never going to just step out there with something kind of normal and whatnot. So I guess we should have expected how beautiful it would be. But when I watched the trailer, I mean, I'd seen footage before, but when I watched this trailer, the longer trailer, it's fucking sumptuous, just fucking gorgeous. Made me appreciate like the time that we're living in. I grew up reading What If comics, and they were always so fucking fun to read because it's like they don't fuck with continuity. It's all about what if and stuff. Getting to re-enjoy it now, like in my old age, in a stunning visual format. Like, this shit looks better than when I read some of the original stories. It's one of those times, like people go like, what a great time to be alive and shit. Like, that's what I felt like when I saw that trailer. I was like, I can't believe I've lived long enough to see this. I almost died a few years ago from a fucking heart attack. And I was like, I would have missed this fucking cartoon. And I said that to Jennifer, and she's like, your perspective is all fucking shot. But it's so fucking good looking. When does this begin?
August 11th, we get the first of 10 episodes.
I'm sure folks on the internet are like, stop blowing Marvel. But it's like, you know what? I will when their cum stops tasting so fucking good. Yes. Because my God, they can do no fucking wrong so far, man. Even like Black Widow to me just made me more excited literally for the first time about the Eternals. Because I'm like, if this is fucking engaging, like, they're never going to whiff. Like, never. Well, I guess sooner or later, everybody whiffs. But like, sooner or later, they got to make their cars too. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see if that ever happens. Right now, a lot of people out there with kids are like, fuck you, I like cars too.
I've seen it 400 times. It's just fine.
Yeah, they're like, you made Clerks too. Shut the fuck up. Until they fuck up, make mine Marvel, man. They're fucking doing it. And no, they don't pay me. I'm not a show. I just fucking love what they're doing. They've not let me down yet. I rue the day that they do let me down, because you know how hardcore fans go from being like, I love this shit, to like, they're fucking dead to me. Like, I don't see that day ever coming. What other news we got, Mark?
Speaking of Marvel, even though they keep giving and they keep giving, they are not giving us any new film footage or any presentations, nor is DC Films at San Diego Comic-Con at home. They're skipping the virtual convention this year, and they're going to withhold whatever first looks they have for some later date.
Second year in a row, I believe, if not the third.
Yeah, second year in a row. And some of it is because, yeah, they maximize the attendance in Hall H. They maximize the sort of market buzz that it creates, and the online version of San Diego just doesn't quite equate for them.
And meanwhile, like these cats are doing their own online festivals. Like Netflix did Geeked Week, did was it D24 or whatever it's called?
D23. You know, and last year,
one fucking number to that, man. And then what did Warner Brothers do? They did their DC
Fandom. They did last year.
Right. So now people are like, we can do this shit on our own, particularly if we're doing it from home. So I know we did a Masters of the Universe Netflix panel that they did for that's coming, I guess, for San Diego Comic-Con. But yeah, I'd heard early on that, like, because I asked, I was like, oh shit, is Marvel going to show anything? They're like, not again. I was like, wow. You think they're ever going to return?
I mean, I think they will once you get, 140,000 people back in San Diego, or they might be keeping their powder dry for New York Comic-Con, which should be back in person in October.
And even then, though, before the quarantine, you remember, like, Marvel didn't go once or twice to San Diego, didn't do a presentation, mainly because they were like in production and didn't have anything to present, but they have been known to step away from the con. Can you imagine being a genre film and you're so fucking big that you don't even need the San Diego Comic-Con to open your movie? It feels like that's where they've gotten to.
Yeah. I mean, and D23 is also a very good birth for that, which is it's our house. We control everything. We control when we go on. We control who we let into the house. We control all of it. And, it helps to just reinforce the Disney brand. So, yeah, there's the version where they do that. And I'm not even sure when the next D23 is supposed to be. But at the very least, it's going to be a while before we see footage of Spider-Man No Way Home, or even, hell, no, that's Sony Marvel. So that Sony hasn't decided yet.
Well, so yelled out from the audience, D23 is this year?
It's usually every year. It's not quite like Star Wars Celebration, but I don't remember when it is.
Doing a small one in Orlando. Hold on, I'm getting information live. Mark, stand by.
Okay.
Hold on, it's coming in now. Go ahead, tell me. 2 days. I can only do a piece of information at a fucking time, man. Hold on. I gotta convey it to him. He can't hear. D23. Keep going.
Check.
Stop. Just a few words at a time. Either in September or October.
It's coming through now, Con.
At the Contemporary Hotel. There's a convention center as well. The Contemporary Convention Center. The news has been broken.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate our man in the field.
Damn, young source, you should get credit. It's Patrick. Give it up for Patrick, everybody. All right, Mark, what other news we got?
Did you see a Tomorrow War? The Tomorrow War?
Yes and no. I started watching it, but I was really tired. There's no slag against the movie. But we had watched 3 movies, me and Jen. And then she was like, oh, what about the Chris Pratt movie on Amazon? And it was like 11 o'clock at night. And I was like, yeah, let's fucking do it. And like 10 minutes in, I was already kind of falling asleep. And it's not by any fault of the movie, because I kept being woken up by my wife being like, oh, this fucking rocks, which she never does, man. She was so into the fucking flick. And she's mentioned it several times since she watched it. She was like, I really like that. You really should have stayed awake. And I was like, well, we could have watched it the next day. And she's like, you're starting to become an old man, going to sleep all early. That's when the good movies are on. And I'm like, they're on when we put them on. Like this. It's not the fucking 70s. We're gonna be old boat and shit, but still. I did, as a long way of saying it. I watched. I understand the premise, but I have to go back and watch the whole movie. What I saw, I did enjoy it. Yourself?
I have seen none of it yet. It came out July 2nd, or before the July weekend, and I opted instead for my
FatMan Beyond. We talk about the movies we both enjoyed.
Indeed. I instead opted for my ceremonial annual viewing of Independence Day on Independence Day weekend.
That what you did?
Yeah, because every year I watch it. For the most part. It's amazing that at this point, like, you don't meet Will Smith until like 40 minutes into that movie.
Is that right?
Yeah, there's a long, whole protracted drawn out thing. Like you don't meet him until the alien ships are overhead, and that's like the end of the first act.
And
And
yet everyone
so,
thinks of him as the star of the movie.
yeah, I mean, it's Jeff Goldblum is the star of that movie, and like Judd Hirsch.
Nobody ever wants to have their name read aloud in that fashion. Judd Hirsch.
Judd Hirsch. Hold on, it's coming through. Judd Hirsch.
What's does the do the effects hold up? Because I rewatched Matrix with my wife, and then I was like, oh my god, that rocked. Let's watch Matrix 2. And we got about 5 minutes in. But the first one, man, we were like fucking absolutely in love with. And this is no slag on the movie. The Wachowskis are brilliant filmmakers, better than I'll ever be. And that movie is groundbreaking and historical and absolutely iconic. That being said, when was the last time you rewatched The Matrix?
A couple years back, I think.
First time I like really noticed the strings, where I was like, oh, this was made in like 1999. So like some of the effect shots look like effect shots, whereas now we're absolutely used to seamless, like things that happen almost seem like they're happening for real. But there are a few shots in there where you can see the composition put together, layer upon layer and stuff. So as modern as is, like the fucking hunter killers, all the bullet time, all the shit, jumping up in the air, turning around cameras, all that shit looks fucking astounding. It still holds up and stuff, but there are moments, standard movie making shit, that like this is the best anybody could do in the 90s, because this was the technology at that point. Like I noticed those scenes for the first fucking time.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Independence Day is a lot like Jurassic Park, in that they did as much as they could with as little as they needed to. Like Jurassic Park has 45 CG shots in the whole thing. Like most of that movie's practical, and then the CG stuff is when you need it. It's when you have velociraptors jumping up on counters and stuff. And so I think that the CG in Independence Day is just with like fighter jets flying up against alien, little whizzy bug things. Everything else is like miniatures. Everything else is like very smart old school. Like when you blow up the White House, it's a baby White House on somebody's lawn that they then blew up. So it sells it that way. The scale of it sells it. And so it holds together better than I thought it would.
Fucking
all of that is to say, I did not see Tomorrow War, but Tomorrow War 2 apparently is coming, because based on its performance on its opening weekend, where
another thing that's coming based on that, my wife, she loved that fucking Tomorrow War movie so much. When I go home and tell her there's going to be a 2, she's going to be like, oh, Pratt, and just fucking wet her pants, man. She really enjoyed that flick. You and I are apparently sleeping on this fucking thing. Did it get a lot of views? Is that why they're already doing 2?
Yeah, apparently it was the number one film across the entire industry, as far as social and conversation and metrics go. It was Amazon's biggest viewer movie ever. It beat out Tom Clancy's Without Remorse and Borat, especially in its opening weekend. And so for whatever metric that Amazon needs to greenlight things, which again, remember, whatever they're spending on movies is a drop in the bucket compared to what they're making on toilet paper and like cloud drives. Most of the Amazon's revenue is based on cloud sharing.
From the people who sell you bounty.
Yes, comes
the Tomorrow War.
Yeah, they bought it from Skydance for $200 million, and they could care less because one dude's going to the moon.
Is that what they did? They bought it for $200, $200 million?
Yep.
So they didn't even make that. They just acquired it, and they're like, we can acquire huge fucking movies.
Yeah, I mean, same thing with Without Remorse, which they acquired from Paramount, and Coming to America, which they made none of. It was like it was a pandemic fire sale, and they just bought a bunch of movies for a boatload of money.
You know the premise of Tomorrow War? Do you know what it? I know they like. Can you elaborate?
I can't articulate on it well beyond what I gleaned from the trailers, which is at some point, soldiers from 40 years in the future come to the past to recruit a bunch of dudes to fight because they're fighting a losing war against invading aliens.
That track the first 10 minutes that I remember. It is something like that. And I was like, cool premise. And then I felt All right, we got to check that out. What other news?
Once upon a time, maybe about a decade ago, Zack Snyder wanted to make a Star Wars movie.
Fuck out. Really?
Yeah, no, he grew up as an Akira Kurosawa fan and as a Star Wars fan, and he had meetings with Lucasfilm. It was a bit more mature than Lucas had ever envisioned, and so the conversations kind of disappeared when Walt Disney acquired Lucasfilm in 2012. But he'd always wanted to make this movie, and so now it's been greenlit at Netflix. It's called Rebel Moon. Let me see. Blah, 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 blah. The story is set in motion when a peaceful colony on the.
Just a quick question: Can just anyone make a Star Wars movie? You don't need Disney's permission. You just be like, "Hey, Netflix, what about Vader rocks?" They're like, "Yeah, come on." Rebel Moon. Did he have to change anything?
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's no Skywalkers in it, but the whole idea.
Like Rebel Moon. Like, how do we know this is not Star Wars? What's the main character's name? And he's like, Bill
Starwalker.
I like this. What does this Bill Cloud looker into? It's got some droids.
Bam.
Oh, fucking BAMF-man's in because he knows a fucking thing or two about Star Wars. JC, what about this?
It has robots, not droids. Droids is copyright or is trademarked by Lucasfilm. I know a thing or two about trademarks in Lucasfilm.
Yeah, he does.
That's right, JC, who runs a bar in Hollywood that has nothing to do with Star Wars whatsoever. Go on, Mark.
The story is set in motion when a peaceful colony on the edge of the galaxy is threatened by the armies of a tyrannical regent named Belisarius. Desperate people dispatch a young woman with a mysterious past to seek out warriors from neighboring planets to help them make a stand.
So Star Wars.
It's Seven Samurai plus Star Wars plus, some old Western, which is ultimately what Star Wars is, which is Seven Samurai. It's Akira Kurosawa plus space.
All right. I mean, who's doing it?
Netflix and ye old Zacky Snyder.
He it seems to have found a welcome home at Netflix, which is good for him because Warner Brothers apparently got to be, they were like, "There's the door, fucking go." So Netflix, come in here and we'll make all your dreams come true. You want to make a Star Wars movie? Come on in. And he fucking went for it. Man. Pretty hot. Good for him.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping it would be like a Star Wars zombie movie because that would be fucking badass. But
that's true. If he's playing all his strengths, it's like Star Wars, but everybody's dead.
It'd be great. Army of the Dead, Rebel Moon.
I'll watch it, especially if it's on Netflix. It's like we say in our house, like if it's on Netflix, it's free, and then I point out like, no, we pay for this, and then we move on. What's the next story, my friend?
It's a thing that I think broke probably about a week ago, but we never got a chance to talk about it.
Okay.
But HBO has decided they did not want to make a second season of Lovecraft Country.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this. That's right. I mean, I think you and I talked about it via text, but we didn't talk about this on the show. I found this incredibly surprising because I thought it got a lot of attention. It got seemed to get awards attention, particularly around this time. I've seen a lot of billboards up in town for your consideration. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fucking insanely well made, insanely well acted. And they ended in such a way that lent to a season 2. So what happened?
It's sort of unclear. Like HBO's statement just says, we will not be moving forward with the second season of Lovecraft Country. We're grateful for the dedication of the cast and crew and to Misha Green, the showrunner creator who crafted this groundbreaking series. The ratings apparently were pretty on par with Watchmen, as well as The Outsider and Perry Mason. And so Perry Mason is getting a second season, although with new showrunners, but The Outsider is not coming back. So it feels like it was probably in that space where, it was 6-5 and pick 'em. It could come back. It couldn't come back. If the conditions were right, it might. But it also seemed as if, Misha Green had been at work on the second season. Like she apparently had crafted out a couple of scripts. She had a whole Bible. She teased it online. She said, "We wish we could have brought you Lovecraft Country Supremacy," which was set in a whole different alternate history of the United States. And she tweeted out a map that had, you know, sort of three different schisms of the country. So it's kind of unclear precisely what happened. Other than we know we're not going to get to see this.
It's a bummer. I really enjoyed it. That was a fun ride, creative as fuck and whatnot. You were there for the beginning of it, and then you kind of fell off.
I tapered it a bit. You know, I loved the first episode, and I think like the fourth episode. You know, it had its bobs and weaves. It had its up and downs, but I thought that it was incredibly brave and smart. You know, and occasionally brilliant. And I would have liked to see more because, you know, there's the world in which we all love shows that didn't get great until season 2 or 3. There's a lot of pressure on TV at this point to come out of the gate firing, and this did. But it, you know, there was a sort of consistency that could have been brought to bear if it had been given another season, which would have done it wonders for me.
It's a bummer, man.
Yeah, for
what
sure.
other news you got?
Matt Damon, I found this kind of cute. Matt Damon is in Cannes premiering his Stillwater movie.
Yeah.
And he revealed.
I've seen the trailer. He mutters in it a lot.
There's a lot of came here for my daughter.
I'm here for my daughter. Like he's got that going on and stuff. Looks pretty good.
Yeah. But he revealed that at one point he turned down starring in Avatar. Despite James Cameron apparently offering him a chunk of the film's profits. And that's a movie that would have gone on to gross about $2.8 billion.
Was the highest grossing film of all time until Endgame, and then The Crown went back to them recently, I believe.
Yeah, his quote was, "I was offered a little movie called Avatar. James Cameron offered me 10% of it," he recalled. "I will go down in history. You will never meet an actor who turned down more money."
And they're like, "Why'd you turn it down?" He's like, "Ben said I should." Right under the bus. Holy shit, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He didn't say why he said no.
He said that he couldn't do the movie because he was shooting the Jason Bourne movies, and he took the moral decision to not leave the franchise in the lurch.
Well, morality pays.
It does.
He shared fucking like keep 10% of Avatar. Give me 10% of 1% of Avatar. Change the fucking world, man. That's crazy. Man, oh man. I know when we were kids, they offered him Daredevil first. Mm-hmm. And he passed for a similar reason because he loved the character, but he's like, I'm already committed to this. And then they went to Ben, and you know, as we know, Ben played fucking Daredevil and stuff.
Yeah,
so, I mean, he passes on stuff. Mercy not fucking passed on my bullshit, but like he does pass on things, and not because he's like this is beneath me. Generally, he's passing because he's doing 9 other things at the same time. But the Avatar, wow, that's something to carry around with you for the rest of your life, man. You're like, could have been a billionaire.
Yeah,
I wasn't born.
He shared this thing that he was apparently working with John Krasinski on something, and Krasinski said, "Nothing would be different in your life if you had done Avatar, except you and me would be having this conversation in space."
He's a good dude. All right, what else we got? What other news?
Now, were you clearly there's a love in your heart for 1980s animation?
Yeah, absolutely.
Were you a fan of Silverhawks?
I'm familiar with it. I watched it. I got to be careful here because I've talked about being a fan of Masters of the Universe, and people were like, "You weren't a fucking fan. You got the dates wrong and shit." Let me clarify what I call fandom, and you tell me whether or not I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. I watched every episode of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe when it was happening in 1983. I was aged out for it. I was about to be 13 years old. So, you know, you remember there wasn't a lot of cable and there wasn't a lot of fucking no internet whatsoever. So you just kind of watched everything that was on. So after school, I'd come home. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe were on. I watched every episode. I would hate watch most of it because I was like, this show's for babies, man. Why won't they fucking stab each other and shit? Every time I watch the show, I'd be like, he's so metal. This guy's a living fucking skeleton and they won't stab each other. One day, someone should make them stab each other. And that's what we did with Revelation and shit. So I watched every episode of that show. Then there are people who are like, you're not a fan of the show. You said you fucking hate watching it as a kid and shit. And I was like, well, I literally watched every episode of that show in real time, over and over again and stuff. If you watch something over and over again, even if you're fucking picking fun at it and shit, you are a fucking fan, man. It's that simple. So that being said, no, I didn't care for Silverhawk. I know it is, though, but it was not part of my world.
Yes, Silverhawks was a classic animated TV show developed by Rankin Bass in 1986, 65 episodes. The concept was a team of 29th century heroes with metal bodies and wings who were tasked to stop an organized crime ring and protect the citizens of the galaxy of Limbo. And
I remember that being a kid because I was Catholic, and Limbo was like, there's a place between heaven and hell where you could go that's like not heaven or hell, where like if you die and you've done some shit but not really bad shit, you could live there for like 100,000 years before you get to go to heaven. You will eventually go to heaven, but you just got to wait a little longer. It's like Earth 2 kind of thing. So I remember that from the cartoon. I remember being like, oh, Limbo, we have that and shit. But that was my only crossover with Silverhawks. It's coming back, isn't it?
It is. The Nacelle Company, which produces Disney Plus's Behind the Attraction, the movies that made us, and the toys that made us.
And that's right. Brian Nacelle, who runs that company, made the toys that made us, which is an amazing fucking show. He is also responsible for a company called Comedy Dynamics, and they made my stand-up special, Silent but Deadly, that I was shooting when I fucking nearly died. So Brian Nacelle was on set when I nearly died, and that night I was supposed to do 2 shows, right? You're supposed to shoot 2 comedy shows, and then you blend them into one, take all the best bits, and it becomes one show. So after the first show, like, I was like, I don't feel well. And I've told that story a zillion times. When they put me into the chair going into the ambulance, Brian Nacelle, who's like well aware of the situation, but he's very funny. He comes over just before I leave. He goes, so we're not doing the second show then? Funny, like you could, look at the toys that made us. That's his absolute sensibility. But he's now moving into animation with this. That's crazy.
Indeed. So apparently the 80s and animation is back in a big bad way, and I would be surprised if Master of the Universe Revelation is not some kind of a lightning rod for all of this. The idea that people can come back, rejuvenate, refresh, breathe new life into an old thing, and get lots of attention and hopefully lots of acclaim because it's really good. That's what Hollywood does. They're like, worked over there, let's try it over here.
And we're guilty of the same fucking thing. Like going into the writer's room on Masters of the Universe, my thing was like, let's do what Marvel does, man. Like basically they're doing a good job. Let's just fucking take the stories from your childhood and treat them all like they're fucking Bible truth and whatnot. And then just add the adult of it all. Like, hey, they could actually get stabbed. Like that's the only difference between He-Man and the Masters of the Universe and our Masters of the Universe. It's like we treated it like, this is the next episode, but in this episode, they could all stab each other and shit. So that's a formula you could do for fucking anything that you grew up watching as a child, with the exception of like Davy and Goliath and Rocky and Bullwinkle. Of sure, it's not like it's Rocky and Bullwinkle, but now they can stab each other.
Motherfucker, if you told me we could do Davy and Goliath where they just stab each other over and over again.
But baby, it's a sin. He's like, shut up. Dog talks no more.
You want to be a Latter-day Saint, punk? Stab.
All right, good for Brian Nacelle, man. I hope he makes a lot of cartoons. I'm gonna get in touch with that guy and be like, look, if you're making cartoons, man, I watched a lot of cartoons in the 80s, man. Let me tell you.
Pick a card, any card. I can do this for you.
Got, man. Holy fuck. Dungeons and Dragons, that's the one I would really like to do. I watched that cartoon. Not the game. I never played the fucking game. I wasn't creative enough. Also didn't have friends. But I watched the cartoon Dungeons and Dragons and fucking loved it. So if somebody was like, do that again, I'd be like, I'd fucking do that in a heartbeat, man. But yeah, it seems like the 80s are coming back in a big bad way, cartoon style. But that all seems to be like, you got to tip your hat to Marvel, Star Wars as well. Star Wars brought our childhood back before anybody else, probably, right?
Yeah, I think so. But also, She-Ra did a great job of like finding a thing that was old and reinventing it and reinvigorating it and bringing it back to a new audience.
Very, very true.
Bam.
FatMan is in. What do you got to add to the proceedings?
Also, the Netflix Voltron show, which was like 5 or 7 seasons, was fantastic.
And that was also like I know you were a big fan. That was also taking what everybody knew and then just extending it. It wasn't like everything you knew about Voltron was wrong. He's a fucking frog this time. It was literally just like all that shit happened. And then the next day, Voltron took a shit. Like it just kept going, right?
No, it was kind of like taking the foundation of Voltron and then building a new story off of it.
Right the
It was
fuck on.
awesome though.
Yeah. And I think if we had to trace it all back, it's probably a bit Transformers. Like, we're going to make this gigantic blockbuster movie based on a cartoon from the 80s, which was based on a toy line. And then there's never been a time where we haven't had a new version of Transformers, you know, animated, live action, whatever it is. But they've done a fantastic job, quality notwithstanding, of keeping Transformers alive.
Fair enough. We're all living in Michael Bay's fucking world.
Indeed.
The Michael Bay simulation, ladies and gentlemen.
The Michael Bayniverse.
Fucking flags and shit like that. What else we got, Mark? What other news? Whither the news, Mark?
Two more stories. One is a little light and celebratory. The other one is less so. The first is today, this very day, on July 10th, is the 40th anniversary of John Carpenter's Escape from New York.
Oh, fucking A, man. A classic, an absolute classic. 40 years old?
40 years old.
That tracks. I guess I would have seen it when I was like 10, just kind of leaving fifth grade. Wow.
Yeah, 1981.
Yeah.
And I love that movie. And I think I love the first 10 minutes of it.
40 years old?
40 years old.
So it came out the same year as Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Mm.
That 40 or 45 this year?
That was 40 this year.
They're both 40 years old? I never in a million years a gun in my head. If somebody was like, fucking Big Trouble Little China come out the same time as Raiders of the Lost Ark, I'd be like, I don't fucking know. And they'd blow my brains out and shit. But I wouldn't have put those two together. Thank you. I wouldn't have put those two together, man.
Yeah, no. I love the first 10 minutes of Escape from New York. I think more than I like.
From New York, did I just say Big Trouble?
You said Big Trouble. I was going to steamroll over it.
This is wrong, Mark. So it's the 40th anniversary of Escape from New York.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense.
That tracks. Oh, that's delicious.
Obviously, I'd run out of drink, and thankfully, Castle Keeper Ernie O'Donnell. What else?
And this was the big one. This is the bidding farewell to Richard Donner, who passed away Monday of this week at 91 years old.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We lost a great man. Give it up for the great Richard Donner. A good guy, a good human being by all reports and stuff like that, but obviously a brilliant fucking filmmaker. Without him, we don't have the modern day superhero movie. We're still working off the formula that he established, with Superman back in the 70s.
Yeah, I mean, Superman, Goonies, the Lethal Weapon series. He was a producer on the original X-Men movies, all the X-Men movies for that
Scrooge, Lady Hawk.
Yep.
And like the list goes on. He's the dude that directed the episode of The Twilight Zone with William Shatner. He's like, there's a man on the wing of this plane. Like, that's how far the guy goes back. The Omen.
Yeah.
I got to meet with them, what was it, 2 years ago? They're trying to make a show over, they were trying. They're probably still trying. I'm out of it at this point, but they were trying to make a show maybe at HBO Max or no, I think it was, for some reason, I think it was Apple. But it would have made more sense at HBO Max. The idea was to do a TV show, a dramatization of the making of Superman, because it was a story that was fraught with, so many pitfalls and whatnot. It was a miracle the movie came to happen at all, and a miracle that it turned into the movie that it was. They're dealing with like technology that didn't exist and shit like that. And, wacky pair of producers, a young director, a studio that was not quite the studio it is today. So, you can get a lot out of it. And there's been articles written about it and documentaries, and there's some funny material and shit. So they were talking about turning that into a series. And so they were like, Richard Donner wants to meet with people who could potentially write the show, and Liz Destro, who's our producer on Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, and also our producer on Clerks 3, if we ever get to make it one day. She was like, I am involved in this show, and they're looking for a writer. And I was like, what's the show? And she told me it was that show. I was like, the Dick Donner fucking Superman show? I was like, oh my God, I would love to do that. I said, but at the very least, I would love to just meet fucking Dick Donner. And she's like, go talk to Dick Donner about the show. I'll bring you in. So I got to meet with Richard Donner at his offices, and he was 90 at that point. I think he passed away. He was what, 91?
Yeah.
So he had just like hit 90 or something like that. And so naturally he moved like a 90-year-old man with, I would say slower than most people, but not like super slow where you're like, this guy's got one foot in the grave. He was still pretty damn spry for a 90-year-old, but more than that, this sharp as a fucking tack. And what a fucking storyteller. What a raconteur, man. Like the dude was a wonderful storyteller with his craft, right? And filmed entertainment. But just a dude sitting in a room talking, like you just sat there listening to him. He just had that voice and the ability to spin a fucking yarn, man. And like it served him well in his craft. But just in a room with the dude, I found him incredibly impressive, endearing as fuck and whatnot. Like just, you know, he's dropping, like he'll be talking about things. He's like, and then Marlon, and you're like, Marlon Brando? Like he was around for movie history, but like every, you know, the way I sit around, tell stories and shit, take that, but like make it about shit you care about. You know what I'm saying? Instead of like, let me tell you my Yoga Hoser story. Here's a motherfucker who could tell you like why the kid on The Omen was so fucking creepy and shit. And it's a funny, charming fucking story. So we were sitting there like listening to him for like hours as he went on. And you know me, I like to fucking talk and shut people up and shit, but I was just so happy to hear the dude talk. And, you know, the job didn't wind up coming together. Fucking COVID happened. I don't know where the project is at this point and shit. But I considered myself, even then, I was like, that was fucking cool. I was lucky to have been able to hang out with Richard Donner. When I heard the news the other day, I was like, oh my God, thank God I did get to like see that guy before he left this world. Because I remember talking to him in the office and being like, I and this is going to sound fucking weird and I don't want to scare you and shit. But I was like, I try to live my entire life like the last 10 minutes of Scrooged. You know, like I love that Bill Murray fucking monologue and stuff. And I was like, I love the feeling when I watched that movie and then the credits would roll and I'd forget the next day about that fucking like everything he spoke about and shit and how it can easily be kind of enacted in my own life. I was like, so for the last 10, 15 years of my life, like I figured out what I've been going for all this time. And I think that it's me trying to fucking live my entire life the way Frank Cross felt at the end of Scrooged. And he was just like, he goes to me, he goes, Kevin, I've heard a lot of horse shit in this business. He's going, but that was the prettiest. Wonderful dude, man, who's like work I've been consuming since I was a kid. I remember going to see Superman in the movie theater. I remember seeing it with my family once in New Jersey and then once again in Kansas City when we were taking like a train trip and whatnot. He was one of the first director names I knew after George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. There was Richard Donner. So it was, you know, I'm not like, I didn't lose sleep over it or cry because I didn't know the man that well, but like I loved his, not just his work, but who he seemed to be from afar. And I was so delighted to find out he was exactly who he seemed to be from afar when I got to hang out with him. Also had all the confidence of a 90-year-old man, something that I look forward to in my, you know, I'm 50, I'm going to be 51 in August and shit. But like, this is how fucking comfy he was. This dude's ripping this fucking story, man, telling this fucking story, and it's amazing. And in the middle of it, ripped one of the meanest farts I've ever heard in my life. And he goes like, that's for later. Anyway, and he was absolute fucking gold, at least for that fucking day. Your thoughts on the great Dick Donner, man?
You know, he defined a lot of the 80s for me. You know, and the 90s for me. I mean, between from Lady Hawk and all the Lethal Weapons and Goonies, and you know, he was I'm not going to say that he was a workman because that's wrong, but he's a dude who started in TV in the 50s.
He did,
you know,
yeah.
and just he was a director. He was a shooter. He got, what do you got this week? Wanted, Dead or Alive? Sure. Streets of San Francisco? Sure. Twilight Zone? Sure. I can do anything. And it felt like that when he was making movies. Like, I can do whatever you got. Superman? Sure. Goonies? Yeah. You want me to produce The Lost Boys? You got it. You know, like he was just a guy who can make anything work. And I always appreciated that. And yeah, like the stories about him and his generosity and his kindness have all kind of begun to flood out over the last, you know, week or so. And my favorite of them was from Jeff Cohen, who played Chunk in Goonies. He said, when my acting career started to peter out, I still love show business, and Dick let me be a production assistant for him. I worked for him at Warner Brothers. When I was applying to college, I said, hey, Dick, can you write me a letter of recommendation for college? He said, sure, kid. Apparently, he called everybody kid. If you were 7 years old, he called you kid. If you were 50, he called you kid. So he asked me to put some notes together to give him an indication of what he should say. In the note to him, I told him about my life and some of the struggles I went through as a kid, my father not being there, and other issues that I dealt with. And he called me on the phone, and instead of merely writing a letter of recommendation to college, he told me that he and Lauren had read my letter and they were going to pay for my college. I was absolutely flabbergasted. I was shocked. I had to sit down because for me, paying for college was going to be a problem. That changed my life, not only economically, but it showed that Dick and Lauren believed in me. They thought that I could do something. They thought that I could make something of myself. That is Dick Donner, being kind, being empathetic, and not because he wanted anything in return.
Fucking beautiful, man. That's
Yeah.
really sweet. And that came from Chunk?
Chunk. Jeff Cohen.
Chunk loves sloth? That Chunk?
That Chunk.
Didn't he go on? He's got a big job. I remember reading something.
He's a lawyer now. I think he's an entertainment lawyer.
That's some powerful shit, man. Number one, how beautiful of the Donners to do that. Number two, if you're out there and you're like, hey, I've worked for Kevin Smith as an actor, I won't pay for your college. Never made that Lethal Weapon money, kids. So, I can't fucking send you to college. But that's so righteous. What a good dude.
Yeah.
We pour one out for the great Richard Donner. It's a true loss for our community. When I was meeting with him, he was talking about putting together the next Lethal Weapon movie. I was like, what? That's going to happen? He goes, yeah, we're doing it on the sly and shit. So I don't know where that project lies at this point, if they got deep into it or anything like that. But I'd heard rumors around town that it was still kind of happening.
Wow.
But I can't imagine it happening now without him. He seemed to be the linchpin of all those productions. Like whenever they show behind the scenes stuff, everyone just adored the guy. So I can't imagine they go on without him. Plus, Mel Gibson.
Yeah, that too.
Is that the end? Is that the end of our news?
That is the end of the news, my friend.
Bam.
FatMan is in. We're not done, ladies and gentlemen. What is it, Bam?
I have two news stories. One, just because Mark mentioned it a little bit earlier when we were talking about the 80s. Transformers 7 is coming out, and they released a title, which was Rise of the Beasts, which means they're going to be doing the Beast Wars version of Transformers. And then the other thing that we missed, which I've been getting harassed in chat about, Star Wars Visions. Did you guys see the little Star Wars Visions?
Oh, I did.
That came out.
What is it?
So Visions is, I imagine, similar to Marvel What If, but within Star Wars. And they took kind of like a manga style animation, and they went out to all these different animation houses and said, tell a Star Wars story that means something to you. And so I guess there was an anime convention that they released this little like 3-minute taste where you got to see behind the scenes, and they listed all the different animation companies doing it. And it looks really, really cool. Almost like Animatrix-ish, but with Star Wars. And one of the guys in chat, Ben Bamboo, was saying, how cool would it be if Visions does well? It's not canon, it's just stories about Star Wars. If George went in and did an animated version of his 7, 8, and 9, so we could all see it. I was like, let's get that change.org petition going.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Who came up with this idea? Ben Bamboo?
Ben Bamboo in the chat. He's one of our regulars.
Does he run Disney?
Unfortunately not.
God damn it, Ben Bamboo. You better get running Disney. You're going to make a cool suggestion like that.
But
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say the Vision stuff looks really cool, and it looks like a really kind of far cry from anything we've seen in Star Wars before. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Fucking
it feels like approved fan fiction in a kind of beautiful way, which is, hey, you people who are really talented, make whatever version of Star Wars you want, and we'll pay for it and we'll put it on our channel. Like that's, I love that idea that these stories, this world is strong enough to support these sort of wild interpretations of it. And I don't know anybody else. I mean, Star Trek could maybe support that kind of, monkeying with it. Maybe the MCU can. it'd be great to just let people run wild. Go for it. Do what you want to do.
Look, if they're ever gonna reach out to me, I got a cool idea about fucking Death Star contractors that I could do for them. But all right, man. Fucking Mark went out and hunted for all the news. We thought he gave it to y'all. JC gave you a little bit at the end, just the tip. But Mark gave you the full fucking to the balls news. Give it up for Marc Bernardin, ladies and gentlemen. All right, kids, that brings us to the part of the show that everyone fucking loves, the interactive part of the show.
Yeah, the second ad.
Oh, fuck. I mean, yes, we got a sponsor, ladies and gentlemen, and we're so lucky to have that fucking sponsor. The second half, the ending half, this back half of FatMan Beyond, we're proud to have as our sponsor, Keeps, ladies and gentlemen. Mark, tell them about Keeps.
2 out of 3 men will experience some form of hair loss by the time they're 35. And I think 2 of the men on this podcast can also speak to that. There are only 2 FDA-approved medications that can prevent it, and Keeps offers both. Simple, stress-free way to keep your hair, convenient virtual doctor consultations, and medications delivered straight to your door every 3 months. Low cost, the treatments are like $10 a month. That's why they start anyway. And Keeps offers generic versions. Discreet packaging, proven results. Prevention is key.
Change you.
Yes.
Yes.
Just prevention is key. Treatments can take up to 4 to 6 months to see results, so act fast. And if you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to keeps.com/fatman to receive your first month of treatment for free.
And they, for some reason, like, we must be helping them move some Keeps products, man, because they keep jumping on with us. A lot of people in our audience apparently want to keep their hair, man. That's the smart play. You can do that with the good folks at Keeps. That address again, Mark.
keeps.com/fatman. Get your first month for free.
We thank the good folks at Keeps.com for being sponsors of FatMan Beyond. Give it up for the folks at Keeps.com, ladies and gentlemen. Keeps is your bridge to the Q&A portion of the show, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone's favorite portion of the show. Bamf Man, jump in and tell me how are we doing this. I got a lot. Well, fuck, I didn't say jump in like that. I got a live audience here. I feel like I should be pulling questions from the live audience. No?
I've got some questions here. I think we should get at least one live.
One live?
I said at least.
To the internet and shit? I think you put that ratio.
I think we could do 3 live and 1 internet.
There you go. There's a man who's fucking thinking. Mark, you're now the producer of the show.
But now you're going to have the same problem I always used to have, which you have to pick. So now everybody's going to be mad at you because I'm in Los Angeles, and so they can't be mad at me because I can't see them.
It's an excellent point, man. So JC ain't going to get blamed, but I might be able to handle this. Do we still have another comic book man still in the house? Is there a comic book man in the house? Is Ming still here?
Did Ming just say no?
Whatever. Okay. Yeah, we don't have fucking Ming in the room. So that's, I was going to make Ming do it and shit like that. And since he was on Comic Book Man, it'd be relevant to the conversation. But Ming's not here. So instead, ladies and gentlemen, Castle Keeper Ernie O'Donnell. Let's bring him up here. Ernie, come on up here real quick. Give it up for Ernie O'Donnell, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Ernie built SModcastle here, man. How's it going so far, sir?
Very good. I love it.
You're a happy camper?
Damn, Skippy, buddy.
Ernie's having a blast. Like I'm
like a kid, man. This is great.
He
like
really is.
Kids,
Ernie's walking around like he's fucking Robert De Niro in Casino. It's amazing. He's got the whole fucking place wired and shit. I feel like I'm sharing.
You gotta get me a SModcastle suit.
Done and done. We will. We'll get you something real smooth. Okay, we're gonna let you pick the people in the audience. That way, people get mad. They get mad at you and stuff.
Oh, I can take it.
We can. Let's go. We can turn the lights on so we can see people in the.
You want me to run back and turn the lights on too? I do it all, buddy.
Oh my God, that's right.
I will do it.
Ernie's literally the only, and he's doing it too. Ernie's the one-man operation that keeps SModcastle running. Give it up for Ernie, man.
Bamf. I feel like I'm watching the alternate version of me. Like I feel like I'm in the Loki show now. Like I'll turn on the lights, I'll do the questions.
This is your variant right here.
This is my variant.
Okay, we'll turn it over to you. I'm gonna let you pick. What's the matter? What'd you see? Oh, there's a bug. He's enjoying the show, man. Don't. What the fuck? Oh my God, that's such bad fucking karma.
He's not dead.
All right, then put him outside.
Now I'm gonna put him in my pocket.
Wow. Yours is changed.
So holy.
I mean, that motherfucker sitting on the table. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna learn to trust humans.
He's like, fuck this Kevin Smith, motherfucker.
Yeah, just like everybody else. You know what? It's your place. If you want to kill bugs, you get to kill bugs, Ernie. You've earned that fucking right. As you can see, Ernie's wearing a SModcastle t-shirt. Show it off, kids. If you're here in the audience, you want one of these fine SModcastle t-shirts. Here at SModcastle, in order to buy things and shit, we don't have a register here and stuff. We send people right down the end of the building to Quick Stop. So people are buying their drinks and food at Quick Stop. That's where we're selling the SModcastle shirts too. So if you want one, go grab one. That'll make SModcastle keeper Ernie very happy.
Thank you very much.
That being said, raise your hands if you want to ask a question. Ernie, pick. I'm gonna close my eyes. Yeah, take the time. Go ahead. Just fucking pick a hand.
You know what?
Yes.
I have to say I like the guy that says weekend. Does that say weekend? What is son? Stand up.
Stand up, young camper. Come here and here. Bring him up front because we can keep him on camera.
Just
Ernie's
don't
gonna
kill
be
no
your human
bugs.
mic stand.
Don't kill no bugs.
Face the audience. What's your name, young camper?
Wait, spin that shit. You get by Kevin. I don't need to be
You're the
there.
director, right?
Name
we go.
again?
Jason.
Everyone give it up for Jason. He's going to ask the question.
Hi, Jason.
Okay, Jason. Question for me and Mark. Fire away.
In the as JC said, variants.
This is weird. Here, sit here next to me.
Oh.
That way you're not like looking back over your shoulder and shit like that. Have a seat.
And this mic's not hooked up, so I'm still gonna be here.
Okay.
Here we go.
All right.
This mic was more about decor than anything else. Okay. Ask the question.
What Loki variants would you and Mark be interested in seeing, and what variants of each other would you like to see? You have to pick for each other, not pick your own.
Fucking good question. Give it up for him, man. That's sweet.
Ooh. What Kev variant would I like to see?
Okay, what Loki variants would I like to see? Let me see. We've seen Kid Loki. We've seen Jack Kirby looking Loki. We've seen Worthy Loki. We've seen Lady Loki.
You've seen Mayor Loki.
Mayor Loki or President Loki.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just for my own preferences, I'd love to see a silent Loki. That'd be good for my brand. Mark, you?
I would like to see the Loki that does not whip his hair back every 15 fucking minutes.
He does that, man. He's like
There's a lot of
kid. He's always fucking whipping this hair back and forth and shit. He's got, if I had that head of hair, I would do the same fucking thing.
Keeps.com.
Keeps.com. Fucking audience saved our ass on that one. Well done. What about our variants?
What variant of Kevin Smith would I like to see?
Yeah.
Don't
say naked variant.
I mean, we're all naked under our clothes, Kevin.
Excellent point.
I would like to see Disco Kevin Smith.
What kind?
Disco Kev. 1970s Kev. Bell bottoms, afro, fucking groovy Kev.
Shit. All right. Fucking, I hadn't seen that answer coming. But better than naked Kevin Smith.
Oh, we'll get you there. It's Disco Kevin. Naked Kevin is not far away.
Starts on the dance floor, and then we take our clothes off. My variant for Mark would be bad writer Mark. So whenever I talked to him, he was just like, oh, what if like the one guy had said to the other guy who was the guy who has said that thing to the guy, What if he was like, "Hey, guy, don't be like that, guy." It's like
Mark?
every yeah, basically. What if Mark was Jason Mewes? That's right. Marc Bernardin's variant is Jason Mewes. Writer variant Mark would be my character.
I would like that action figure.
He's got scripts in his hand and shit. Excellent question. Give it up for him, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we have been joined by Bam Fan. They can't see you, I realize, so I have to kind of talk to them. Bam Fan is with us, ladies and gentlemen. Go.
I would love to see the drunk variant of Kevin and the stoner variant of Mark.
Now, there's a guy who knows our show. Well fucking done, man. We've seen the drunk variant of Mark, that's for sure. You've got Skywalker in the house. He starts skywalking. The drunk version of me is like I'm very sentimental. You know how I wear my heart on my fucking sleeve anyway? Drunk me is just like, I fucking love all of us, man. So it would get irritating very quick. That would be a variant you'd want stabbed, or what do they call it? Pruned. There you go. Excellent question. Give it up for him one more time.
Can I get a picture now and abuse the
Not
situation?
at all. Go. We'll do that afterwards. All right. Who's the next question, Ern?
I think I got him. Come on, some bitch.
It's DJ. DJ, come on up and ask a question. Face that camera so people can see us. Sit here in this chair. Ernie's going to be your human mic stand.
Is there not a mic right next to you, Kev?
It was only for show.
Oh, that's adorable.
Ornamentation, not for fucking. Go ahead.
All right. So you guys have a show coming out this month that, according to the internet, may or may not have He-Man in it. And I know you said before, you don't want to touch the Marvel stuff, you don't want to touch the Star Wars stuff, but for both of you working on this, does it make you want to play with someone else's toys, so to speak, more or less? And if so, I know you just did Dungeons and Dragons, more from Mark. Is there something else from back in the day you'd want to grab a hold of and put your spin on?
What a great question.
That may or may not include He-Man.
Based on the experience that I had on Masters, like it did make me go like, oh shit, it's fun playing with somebody else's toys. I still feel there's some toys that should be placed out of my reach because I don't think I'd be good at playing with them and stuff. So it doesn't make me more confident in terms of like, now I can fucking take on Marvel and shit like that. But it did make me feel like going into it, I was like, I'm pretty sure I can pull this off. Like, I think I could be incredibly reverent while like taking the story forward and stuff. So it was a very case by case basis, but this first case, so far so good, where I felt like, oh my God, I legit had fun doing it. Going into it, I was like, well, this will be an interesting exercise. And coming out of it, I'm like, that's one of my 5 favorite things I've ever done. So I could definitely get my head around doing it again, but not at an expert level or something like that. I'm still content to just watch Marvel movies. I don't, and TV shows and shit like that. I don't need to be involved with those. Because as I've learned on Masters, you can have as much fun as you fucking want. You can do as great a job as you possibly can. And that's not just you, that's all the people involved, all the writers, Powerhouse, fucking Netflix, Mattel Television. And at the end of the day, like what you don't think about, even though we thought our whole project about what the fans would think, like the whole thing's predicated on the history of the characters and stuff. Like we could not have predicted that there's a portion of the audience that's just like, well, we're mad and stuff, or we feel like we've been lied to or whatever the fuck. All that planning and like still couldn't see that coming. So there's a portion of me that's like, okay, the Masters of the Universe audience, very big. They sold billions of dollars of toys in the 80s and stuff, but it's coming back. So right now there's definitely vocal people about it and stuff, but its audience isn't as big as say the Marvel movies. Taking on one of those Marvel movies, you're not only fucking like taking on the Sisyphean task of trying to make just a good movie that's going to satisfy the high bar the audience is accustomed to. You then also have to take on the audience rage if you drop the ball in their perception. So the little taste of the rage that I've got from working on Masters of the Universe is more than enough for me to be like, I will just watch Marvel for my entire fucking life. Because I don't think I can handle it. Like that many people being upset that you didn't do what they thought you were going to do or something like that. Like earlier I talked about like, man, I thought fucking Taskmaster was going to be this. but what they did, I actually liked and shit. I have, there's a lot of love. Don't get me wrong. 99 fucking % of the people talking about the show, loving what they see and shit like that. But that 1%, like they're mad and they're gonna stay mad. It doesn't matter. I think they'll watch the show, and even if it's not what they think it is, I think they'll still kind of stay mad. And knowing what a soft boy I am, my mother told me my whole life, you're too soft. Don't talk to others and shit. They'll hurt your feelings. Knowing that, I shouldn't have gone into the arts, but I fucking did. And I know my threshold. Like having dealt with this for like a month or so on Masters of the Universe, I would never want to up the ante and be like, let me take on some shit that people everywhere fucking care about or something like that. Sooner or later, I think Masters will get so popular that they'll be like, we'll take this out of your hands now. But right now, like I get to be in the fucking catbird seat and it's been absolutely wonderful, but it doesn't fill me with overconfidence where I'm like, I'm ready to take on the big boys. I still.
It happens.
Get the fuck out.
Did you set your Google Maps to get to the bathroom? Anyway, that's my long story short answer. Mark, yours.
I think, I can't speak for you, Kev, because that would be futile. I don't have the words. But the experience on Masters was very much where everybody involved saw the same show. Mattel knew what they wanted, Netflix knew what they wanted, you knew what you wanted, and it was all the same thing. And I think when you're working with legacy IP like that, when you're working with a franchise like that, everybody involved needs to see the same show. And so that's what Marvel does incredibly well, where everybody's seeing the show that Feige or the movie that Feige wants to tell. But there's other giant franchises where it's harder to make everybody get on the same page. So my desire to play in other sort of sandboxes is entirely and directly related to how many people have their fingers in the pie, and can those people all see the same pie we're trying to bake, and not looking for blueberry and apple and cherry, and we end up with some fucked up turducken that nobody wants to eat. But my gut, like there's a piece of me, I don't know if anybody else remembers this show. I have a fondness for it, probably based entirely on the opening sequence, but Galaxy Rangers was the show back in like 82, 83, 84. Probably also based on a set of toys that I never played with, but I just loved it was Firefly before we had Firefly. It's a space western where they got like robot horses, and one dude is clearly the Wolverine of the team and it's got this arm that lights up and it's fucking metal, and the other dude's got a fucking cannon, and the other guy's got magic fucking 6 shooters, and like it was badass to like 13-year-old me. And I feel like to get to play in that universe with those characters would just be fun. Like I just want to have fun, and that feels like it would let you have fun, like the same way we got to have fun on Masters. So more fun all the time.
I agree. Give it up. That's a great answer. Great question. Give it up to DJ. Give it up to Mark.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. All right. Third question from the audience, Ern. This is a real Sophie's choice. This is the last one you get to pick. What's it going to be?
I'm going deep.
Ooh.
I was going to touch it, but I'll leave it right there.
Come on, brother.
Come on up. Oh my God, you're like doing it like let's make a deal. You're running through the aisles and shit like that. Next, people will be wearing or the slowest. Here, have a sip. What's your name, young camper?
Derek.
Everyone, give it up for Derek. He's going to ask a question. Now, hold on, Derek. Before we get started with the question, somebody just went into the bathroom at SModcastle. The bathroom at SModcastle is right next to the stage. Let's listen and hear them piss.
Oh, but what if it's not piss?
Good point. Let's move on. Okay, ask your question. My friend.
Okay, quick anecdote.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever hear the theory that Michael Keaton's Batman sold his life rights, and that's when we got Batman Forever and Batman and Robin? So that's the in-canon universe of why the tonal shift was so radical.
So this theory, the thesis then states that Batman and Batman Returns are real, but Bruce Wayne sold this story to be made for a movie, and the movie is Batman Forever and Batman and Robin?
Yes.
I totally fucking buy that theory, man.
That's right.
That's a really
good
theory.
one.
Yeah, that would explain a thing or two about a thing
Yeah.
or two, the tonal shift. Well done. I buy that. I co-sign that.
Okay.
I'm going to believe in that as much as I
Yeah.
believed in I knew who Taskmaster was. What do you got?
Okay. So, my grandfather was my Alfred. He passed away that same day. I read Tom King's.
Hold on one second. Don't roll over that. That's some of the most beautiful writing I've ever heard on this show. My grandfather was my Alfred.
Yep.
That is so evocative. Instantly, I had a fucking image of your relationship. That's fucking beautiful. Do you write?
No.
Do you
I
fight
wish-
crime?
Mark, you're a good writer. You like that?
I just want to know if he's also Batman.
You haven't seen me and Batman at the same place at the same time.
That's true. We've been
Yeah.
really. All right, keep going.
Okay. So that night, after everything settled, I read Tom King's issue of his Batman run.
Yes.
And it was when Batman was intoxicated with this venom scarecrow toxin thing.
Yes.
And he had this lifelike, vivid image of Alfred. And he had to say goodbye to him.
Yes.
It's from his memory because Alfred's dead in that comic run right now.
Yes.
So the question is, has a comic book ever gotten you guys through a traumatic experience or helped you cope with something that day, later on, or something like that?
Hands down, absolutely. What a great question. Give it up. Great question, ladies and gentlemen. And an even better theory that makes fucking Batman Forever and Batman and Robin watchable again, where it's like, oh yeah, this is the movie they made about him, and even Batman was mad in real life. Okay, yes, there are comic book panels, imagery, pages, storylines that have profoundly affected my life, and I'm sure most adults who aren't into this bullshit would hear a fellow adult say that and be like, you've lived a wasted life, and I believe the exact opposite. I think I've found things in art that have enriched my life as a human being in ways that sometimes normalcy wouldn't. Like, some people can't say things to you quite as beautiful as a writer could put it. You know what nobody's ever said to me in my life before, or not said to me or said that made me fucking stop and ponder? My grandfather was my Alfred, something like that. You're not gonna get that from somebody. You don't walk into fucking Wawa and you're like, can I pack cigarettes? And like, my grandfather was my Alfred. You get that from the arts and stuff. And so arts, comic books, big part of the arts. And for me, very entertaining part of the arts. I love reading books, don't get me wrong, but I love reading comics far more. They're shorter and they're more visually interesting than a standard book. It's not to put people off books and stuff. I'm not an illiterate, but I just fucking love graphics. Obviously for years I've been talking about comics. One comic book page and panel particularly has really shaped like the last, I don't know, 15 years of my life, probably since I became like a fairly serious stoner. And that is, I'm gonna run the risk of the internet being, you're lying again, but it's page 1 of The Dark Knight Returns. I could be wrong. Maybe it's on page 2, but I'm pretty damn sure it's fucking page 1. As previously mentioned, as a stoner, bear with me because sometimes fucking shit slips, but I'm pretty sure it's page 1. On page 1, Bruce Wayne in the book, of course, is driving a fucking race car around the track and whatnot. He's going at high speeds, and he's got people in his ear, at Ferris Raceway track going like, you gotta pull out, you're gonna fucking hurt yourself, get out, you're crazy, it's too fast, too far. And everyone's alerting him to get out of the fucking car. And Frank Miller's very powerful internals for Bruce Wayne kind of kick off the story, where he talks about like, if I don't remember it exactly, but if I go into this uncontrolled slide, I'm going to be dead within like 12 seconds or blah, 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 and a blaze of fuel and blah, blah. Very Frank Miller-esque dialogue. But the line that profoundly fucking affects me and still kind of shapes decisions I make to this day is he has Bruce Wayne say, after setting up what will happen momentarily, how he's going to crash this car, there's no way fucking out of it and stuff like that. Rather than read his panic, the next line he writes for Bruce Wayne is, this would be a good death. And right then and there, you're like, Jesus Christ. Like, this is a different fucking main character than you've ever dealt with before. Because you're like, this is meant to be Batman. And Batman is talking about like death. And this would be a good death. What the fuck is going on? And instantly, you're fucking pulled into it in terms of storytelling. And then the very next panel, he says, but not good enough. And he turns the wheel and the entire fucking story begins. It always struck me that like, if he's like, this would be a good death, and it is, Dark Knight ends on page 1 and it's all
Yeah.
fucking over. But because he makes the decision to fucking turn the wheel, knowing that like if I head in this path, like I'm gonna get what I've always wanted, because this character has searched his entire life for a fucking good death. My take on Batman, he's so fucking grief stricken. He don't want to live in this terrible fucking world that killed his parents as a boy. But in order for him to function and live in this fucking world, that's the only way he can handle it, by dressing up like idiotically and beating the shit out of fucking chain snatchers and muggers and stuff. It's really something kind of beautiful about that. And here we have the old example of that guy, the guy who gave up on the kind of brief idealism of the childhood vow he made over his dead parents, like this will never fucking happen to anybody else. He's past that shit. He's fucking seen the table is tilted, the game is fucking rigged, man. It's all a fucking joke and shit. He's been out of it for 10 fucking years. Why bother living? What he's been looking for his whole life is a good fucking death. And he never got it at the hands of any of the fucking villains, Riddler, Catwoman, Joker, Penguin, whoever the fuck he fought. And on page 1 of Dark Knight Returns, he's like, this would be a good death. And you feel the sense of like, this is what he's been looking for his whole life. And just when like the one kid you might give it up for, the one person you might understand suicidal in this world, where it's just like, fucking how much are you gonna throw at this kid? He lost his parents, he gets beat up by clowns all the fucking time, like everything in his life is bad and shit. You would forgive him if he was like, this would be a good death and fucking I'm finally going for it. But there's just that little bit of fucking hope left in the kid that watched his parents die, where he's like, but not good enough, turns the wheel, starts the whole fucking story. Every decision in my life where I sit there going like, well, this would be it. This is like what you wanted. This is everything you fucking dreamed about and shit. This is the end. And then I'm usually like, yeah, but, and I fucking turn the wheel because of that book. I was like, if you just, what happens if you turn the wheel? Like you know, like I thought going into fucking Black Widow, I knew exactly who fucking Taskmaster was, but they turned the wheel at the last second. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like, I didn't see that coming. Sometimes, every time, I don't give a fuck, man. It's always worth turning the wheel. So that panel means the fucking world to me. I'm not trying to communicate that like I've been suicidal or anything. I fucking love myself too much to ever think about that sort of thing. But I'm a person filled with self-doubt and shit like that. That page has been very, very powerful for me. So I love that. The other profound page, not long a story, but it's just an impactful image. I guess it is kind of a longer story, is in Daredevil. There's another Frank Miller run, but it's Dave Mazzucchelli art and stuff. Frank Miller's run of Daredevil in Born Again, like one of the greatest comic book stories ever written, where the Kingpin disassembles, finds out that Matt Murdock is Daredevil, and disassembles his life without him knowing it and shit to try to drive him crazy, and before he can finally break him and shit. Just fucking cruel shit. The whole story gets started because Karen Page, his ex-girlfriend, sold his secret. Like she wound up as a junkie in another country, I think Colombia or something like that. And she, to get a little horse or something, she was like, Matt Murdock is Daredevil. And that information traveled all the way to the Kingpin. And in the book, Frank Miller's like, everyone who touched that information died, because Kingpin is the only one who wants to have that information to himself and stuff. So because of Karen Page kind of selling out that fucking secret and shit, it starts everything. And Matt Murdock's life is turned into literal fucking hell. It's one of the greatest deconstructions of the character of all time. He strips him of not just his heroism, but his fucking humanity, and leaves him with absolutely nothing. That's how he wants to destroy Daredevil. So Karen Page simultaneously is trying to make her way from where she was, lost and broken, back to New York, because she's like, Matt will save me, Matt will help me and stuff. So she finally gets to New York. She's being hunted down by this like killer fucking pimp that she'd been traveling with, this drug dealer and shit. He's drawing down on her in an alleyway. He's going to shoot her and shit. Everything's going fucking dire. Matt Murdock and Daredevil are fucking gone, nowhere to be seen. Presumably Kingpin has fucking broken him. And there's Karen Page in the alley, and she's a junkie. And so she wants to fix one last time. She knows she's going to die at this dude's fucking gun and shit. And so she's desperate to fucking put the needle. I'm going to cry just talking about this shit. She's
Somebody get a
desperate.
tissue.
Yeah, get a box of tissue. She's desperate to get the fucking needle into her arm. And you see, she's like, you know, the beautiful voiceover he wrote for her, she's just lost. She's like, there's nothing to fucking live for. And then all of a sudden there's this fucking panel where the Billy Club comes out of nowhere and fucking knocks the needle out of her hand and arm, takes out the fucking guy who was going to shoot her. and there's a full page spread, of giant fucking splash page of Matt Murdock, you know, wearing like a fucking, almost, if I remember correctly, kind of like a Marty McFly vest type of jacket thing. He's got full growth of his beard and shit. He's not dressed like Daredevil at all. And he's kneeling on the ground, and he is holding the most thankful human being you've ever seen in your life. And it's not like, oh, the hero rescued the fucking girl again or some shit like that. This guy would be totally justified in not fucking rescuing this person. And this person like fucking knows it, has no expectation to be rescued, forgiven, anything like that. And this motherfucker is so superhuman and so heroic. He puts aside the grudge he could and fucking rightfully should have against the person responsible for overturning his entire life, or at least giving the information to somebody who got that information to Kingpin. And instead, he holds her in this fucking embrace, and she is bawling her eyes out. It's one of my favorite fucking comic book panels of all time, and it's a splash page because it says everything about superheroism that you don't really see. We always enjoy the story where a motherfucker punches another motherfucker and stands over him and like, I've delivered justice. What is more beautiful and pure and just than that? Somebody who is so committed to the cause of justice that they can step above their own personal, perhaps, reproach and fucking forgive. And it happened in a book with a character that is very Catholic oriented, as Daredevil is. So as a Catholic kid, that like hit me so hard. It still hits me to this day. Mark, over to you.
Again, one of those like, I gotta follow the Rolling Stones now. Great. I similarly have two ideas. The first is an issue of The Sandman, which I read The Sandman, you know, as it was coming out. I bought it, you know, monthly, but I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. You know, like I was in that phase of like, you know, I was like just out of college, just starting to work. I was an editor at a magazine called Starlog, but I didn't know if that's what I wanted. I loved comic books my entire life, but like, who am I going to be? And Sandman is a book that is a lot of things, but it's also a book about story and about who gets to tell stories and about how you build a framework for those stories. And so there's an issue that's issue 19 called Midsummer Night's Dream, where William Shakespeare is taking his company of players out into the middle of the wood, and they don't know why they're going out there. And he's written a play, and they're going to perform it. And who's our audience going to be? And then some giant door opens up in the side of like Fiddler's Green, and out walks the entire like fairy host to come and watch the performance of Midsummer Night's Dream. And there's this moment where Lord Oberon turns to Morpheus and is complimenting William Shakespeare on having, for the first time, gotten their likenesses right. Like, he knows who we are. It's like, well, I told him everything I knew about you. And so he's the first one who got us right. And so that feeling, the responsibility of telling stories and respecting the people you're telling stories about and doing the work to make sure those stories feel good to the people who are ingesting them. You know, Sandman made me want to be a writer, but that story made me want to write the kind of stories that I tell, which are about specific people and their worlds. And sometimes you don't see those worlds a lot, but the importance of making sure that those worlds and those people and those characters are portrayed with as much rigor as I can. I sort of got in a back-ass, you know, sort of way from Sandman.
Nice. Remember that issue. Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it's gorgeous. And then the other one is, you know, it's a thing that I continue to try and process and will do so for the rest of my life. But I've got an autistic kid, and growing up, you know, I didn't know any people who were autistic, or at the very least, you know, it wasn't a thing we talked about back in the 70s and 80s, like that kid's special or different, or, you know, God forbid, a retard. Which is a word we no longer use for plenty of reasons, all of them valid. But then when I had an autistic kid, like processing the feelings about it and my own perspective on it, you know, I ultimately processed all those feelings by writing a comic book about a kid with autism. And so it's still, it's a work in progress, my own feelings about it. But at the very least, I was able to synthesize some of those feelings and hopes and dreams and wants and failures and disasters and heartbreaks into this comic book called Adora in the Distance, which I don't mean to plug my work right now because that's not what I'm here for, but the idea of comic books helping you to process events in your life. I think that's a very big part of what art does for people who make art, which is here's where I am at the moment that I am, and here's how I'm trying to understand who I am and when I am, and being able to have that kind of pillar in the sand, and because your life is always shifting under you, but that thing exists as a moment in time where you were that guy, and that's what you felt about that thing. And so for me, that's what Adora is. It's the person that I was when I discovered that I had an autistic child, and how I tried to understand who she was when she couldn't tell me. And so that's what that book is, and that's what that book does for me.
Beautiful fucking answer. Give it up for Mark, ladies and gentlemen. I saw it was this week that the Hollywood Reporter wrote something about you. I saw like the headline was author or writer searches for his daughter inside a comic book. Was that this week?
It was this week. It was Vanity Fair.
Vanity fucking Fair, man.
Yeah.
Who did you blow? That's some major ink, man. I was happy when I thought it was THR. Jesus, man, that's fucking great. How was the piece? I just read the headline.
Yeah, no, it was a very, very warm piece. It was written by Anthony Bresnikan, who you may or may not have any like interplay with.
I love it.
But I mean, I love that dude. I've worked with him when we were at EW together. But I have never been on this end of his scalpel, you know, as a patient, as a subject of an interview. And it was a fantastic experience because I'm talking about stuff that's really, really personal and things that are really close to my heart. So he was very gentle with me, which is what you'd expect from a tender lover, who I completely believe Anthony Bresnikan is.
So that's how you got the story in Vanity Fair.
You were not making it up.
Question. Give it up for our questioner.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
All right, Bam, man, get in here and feed us from the internet, man, so you don't get slaughtered.
Bamf.
Back.
All right.
Bam.
This question is from Elise Deals, and they would like to know, you need a group therapy session. Which superheroes would you want in your group?
That's really good. I've never done therapy or group therapy. I mean, I would actually, I'm lying. I did go to therapy once, and I was like, I don't think I need this. And not because I'm like, I'm better than people, but I'm like, I have podcasts. And so I just went and told my problems there. But I've never been in group therapy. So is the idea of group therapy like Rick and Morty, where the family goes together to group therapy? So it's that kind of thing. What family members would I want to choose, or who do I want in my group therapy? Like, is the idea you're supposed to learn from others in group therapy?
Bam. I've never done group therapy either, but I imagine it could also be like an AA type meeting, you know, like.
All right, thank you. That well done. Now I can translate that and shit. So I'm like, all right, what other comic book characters are like me? And who do I want to be in a fucking group with? Black Bolt from the Inhumans.
Lots of silent people, so you can have the stage.
Jericho from the Teen Titans. You're catching on to the bit, aren't you?
I see it happening.
Who else does? No, I was going to say Grodd, but all he does is talk.
Groot.
Excellent fucking call. He'd be the leader of the group because he at least says something.
Yeah. Could you go a little deeper? I am Groot. Could you, no, but more. Can you reveal? I am Groot. You're not helping Groot.
Pain. I am Groot. And of course, since I love him and everything, Batman.
Nice.
Because if you have Batman in group therapy, you're going to hear interesting shit every fucking week. You know, sometimes I imagine you got to sit there and listen to the problems of others. You know, I don't give a fucking rat's ass about this stranger. But if somebody was just like, the little boy I hang out with got shot by a question mark, you'd be like, you are the most fascinating person in this room.
Oh, do go on.
What about you, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, Batman was first on my list because that motherfucker's got issues.
Yes.
Ben Grimm, I feel like would be interesting.
because there's a guy who's always like, keeping the sunny side up, but he's just like, I'm made of orange rock. But actually, he'd want to let loose in the room.
It's not even cool rock. It's fucking orange.
There are no real orange rocks in life.
I can't blend in anywhere.
The YouTube geologist would be like, you fucking idiot. There are such things as orange rocks. I'm sure there are. My bad.
Let's see. I mean, Daredevil, clearly. That's another dude who's got lots of shit to process.
Yeah, but that's like Catholic shit. You don't want to fuck with that, man.
No one piece of that.
Yeah, that's tough. 'Cause that's wrapped up in God, and then you got to get into the God thing with him and stuff. And that dude's had some issues. Plus, he's like a nun. Yeah, he'd be tough. Actually, he'd be fairly fascinating on that level as well.
Speaking of AA, Tony Stark, also like classic narcissist, also substance abuse issues. Like that's a dude who's got some stories to tell.
Way more entertaining than fucking Batman as well.
Yeah, but Batman and Tony Stark in the same fucking group therapy, like that would just be fun.
They would fucking hate each other
so much.
Oh my God, that's it. I think we've narrowed our group down. Tony Stark, Bruce Wayne, and the rest of us just going like this. Banff Man's in. How are you doing?
You should throw in Charles Xavier so that when Tony and Batman were lying, he could be like, "You're lying. You're exaggerating. You don't have that much money."
That's true. We'd find out who the real fucking billionaire is, man. Excellent job. What a great question. Who said that on the internet? Who was the questioner?
That was Elise Deals.
Well done, Elise Deals.
Thanks,
Give it up
Elise.
for Elise Deals, everybody. Oh my God, can you believe it? We've done it. We've gotten to the end of the show. Were there any technical difficulties the entire time? JC, Banff Man?
Banff. The same 8 people in chat complained about the audio that complain about it every week, but outside of that, no, we're fine.
That's not bad, but they complain about the audio the same way they do every week, right?
Yeah.
Consistent.
Anybody here? Anybody talk about the camera work? I thought Josh was doing a nice job from the back of the room. He's shooting long lens and shit.
No.
Come on, bro. You're a producer. Can't you just like sweet talk me and be like, oh, that's all they talked about and shit?
I think people were excited that it was like this weird hybrid of a show.
Josh, because from the back he goes, JC's a prick. All right, good to know, man. But more importantly, fuck the internet because we can't see or hear them. For all we know, they don't exist. These people are real. Did you have a good time tonight, ladies and gentlemen?
I see applause.
Thank you enough for coming out here to SModcastle on the second night ever for this hybrid FatMan Beyond show. Like I said, the second half of August feels like Mark's going to be out here, so we'll be able to do it together here in the room. Thank you to JC for hooking it up. Give it up for Banff Man himself, JC. If you're in California or in Hollywood, or you're not, get to Hollywood, California, and go to the Scum and Villainy Cantina. Open up right now. Do you have to? Did they reinstate masks, JC? Mask up?
No masks yet because Newsom's getting recalled. So our governor's being recalled. So he's doing everything he can to not rock the boat.
Oh, is that right? So even though the scientists are like, we should remask, he's like, no, I want to get reelected.
Yeah, basically.
Sorry,
Awesome.
for a second, kid. Here it's the Wild Wild West, man. No masks whatsoever and shit.
Everything is legal in New Jersey.
They were just like, we don't have anything to say to that. Thank you, JC, for making it happen. But ladies and gentlemen, there is no show without the guy that normally sits beside me, but today sits in that little box you see on your screen. Give it up for the great Marc Bernardin, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
We are going to head into our late night SModcastle show tonight, which is a screening of a movie. I can't say what it is, special screening and stuff. So we've been running a little late, so we're going to rush out of here, ladies and gentlemen. But thank you for spending all the time with us here at home. Thank you to the audience for spending time with us here in person. we had been talking about doing this for months, and we kind of they pulled it together today, and it turned out kind of well. So it looks like we might be able to continue doing this like all summer long on the weekends. You game, Mark?
Let's give it a go, my friend.
Yeah, man. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Fat Man Beyond for this week. I'm Kevin Smith.
I'm Marc Bernardin.
Tune in next time. Same fat time, same fat channel, smodcast.com or
YouTube.com/Kevin Smith.
Jeff's Kiss, everybody. Give it up, folks.